Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. Today we're covering Six of the Dusk, a short story.
Tick, 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 tick.
Thick,
Of
thick, thick,
Dusk.
thick, 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 thick. Hello, Zebus. Hello, Bimo.
Hi, Gladys.
Hi, Glidus. I'm so excited for this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that Kita and I have read up to... Hi, Libralita. Hello, Rishi. Thanks for joining.
Mm-hmm.
Kita and I have currently read up to chapter 19 in Well of Ascension. Hello, Carl.
Chapter 19, hello, Carl.
Of Well of Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
And chapter 5 in Way of Kings. We are barreling through them. For those who are new here, please do not spoil past those points. We are very grateful to our awesome audience who takes the no spoilers very seriously. We've been very fortunate thus far. But this is something else entirely. It's Sixth of the Dusk.
Mm-hmm. Have no idea. I have no idea about it.
Yes, I know nothing other than what I've seen from this cover art and this bit of fan art that I found online.
Yeah, that's accurate. The Dorcas face, and it just happened. That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
that is 100% accurate. Shall we start then?
Yes. Do you want me to show the picture? Like of our
Sure.
book, or are you going to show the picture?
You can show the picture, please. Hello. I need to... Why do I always...
Me! There? Gosh. There's the picture.
Yes. Hello, Carol.
Very scary.
I'm pretty sure you mean the picture and not Carol, who I'm sure is wonderful.
Not Carol, yeah. So there's a picture. Horrific death is a great way to start. Yeah, that's exactly it. Lots of death. And many evil-looking chickens.
The picture gives me Swamp Thing vibes.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. And a little bit of King Kong, maybe. A little bit of Jurassic Park. It's an island.
Much jungle.
They'll be fine.
Oh my god, the death is crazy. It's got like this plague and wow.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
wait.
because there's that guy with all of the boils. And then right
Yeah.
south of that, there is a skeleton. Or at least a skull.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into this, shall we?
I don't know, I'm scared, but let's go.
Death hunted beneath the waves. Dusk saw it approach, an enormous blackness within the deep blue, a shadowed form as wide as 6 narrowboats tied together. Dusk's hands tensed on his paddle, his heartbeat racing as he immediately sought out Cokerly. Fortunately, the colorful bird sat in his customary place on the prow of the boat, idly biting at one clawed foot raised to his beak. Cokerly lowered his foot and puffed out his feathers, as if completely unminded of the danger beneath. So I'm assuming Dusk is this main character.
Mm-hmm. And we got
from the art.
broccoli. We got a birdie. And
Yeah.
I suppose that's the parrot. Oh god, the pronunciations are going to kill you, says Libra Lisa. But I don't know. So far they're fun.
Oh boy. Well, since we're doing this live, you can correct me in real time.
Yeah.
Dusk held his breath. He always did when unfortunate enough to run across one of these things in the open ocean. He did not know what they looked like beneath those waves. He hoped to never find out. The shadow drew closer, almost to the boat. A school of slimfish passing nearby jumped into the air in a silvery wave, spooked by the shadow's approach. The terrified fish showered back to the water with a sound like rain. The shadow did not deviate. The slimfish were too small a meal to interest it. A boat's occupants, however...
The Kraken is coming!
Kraken? What's Kraken? Or a shark, perhaps? Death. It's
shark.
death either way. It passed directly underneath. Sock chirped quietly from Dusk's shoulder. The second bird seemed to have some sense of the danger. Creatures like the shadow did not hunt by smell or sight, but by sensing the minds of prey. Dusk glanced at Coquerly again, his only protection against a danger that could swallow his ship whole. He had never clipped Coquerly's wings, but at times like this he understood why many sailors preferred aviar that could not fly away. The boat rocked.
We've got a race there. We've got a race, a aviar. Okay, are they all the same species of bird?
I think it's a type of bird. Mm-hmm. Yes, the aviar.
No, I'm saying like the two hunting. Of them, because we've got the we've got Sock, and Coquerly.
Yes.
So are they the same? Anyway, let's go.
The boat rocked softly. The jumping slimfish stilled. Waves lapped against the sides of the vessel. Had the shadow stopped? Hesitated? Did it sense them? Coquerly's protective aura had always been enough before, but... The shadow slowly vanished. It had turned to swim downward, Dusk realized. In moments, he could make out nothing through the waters. He hesitated, then forced himself to get out his new mask. It was a modern device he had acquired only 2 supply trips back, a glass faceplate with leather at the sides. He placed it on the water's surface and leaned down, looking into the depths. They became as clear to him as an undisturbed lagoon. Okay, so Coquerly has a protective aura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
neat.
What about the other one? So okay, so they got
probably 2 different types of birds.
I want to understand. Yay! Good. The magic in this apparently is very cool, says Rishi. So I'm seeing that. The birds are great. Yeah. This would be a good game, I suppose.
And I think there are myths of different types of birds being repellent to magical creatures. Like the cockatrice is supposed to fight off basilisks, right?
Okay.
Am I wrong?
No, I don't know. You're not wrong. Oh my gosh. A parrot called the Dragon Reborn. Wow. You have to say the Dragon Reborn, and do you call him Rand? Because that's from the Wheel Time. That is his full name too, yes.
First name the, last name Reborn, middle name Dragon. He placed it on the water's surface and leaned down, looking into the depths. They became as clear to him as an undisturbed lagoon. Nothing. Just that endless deep. Fool, man, he thought, tucking away the mask and getting out his paddle. Didn't you just think to yourself that you never wanted to see one of those? Still, as he started paddling again, he knew that he'd spent the rest of his trip feeling as if the shadow were down there, following him. That was the nature of the waters. You never knew what lurked below. Jumanji vibes.
Yep. It feels like you never knew what lurked below is going to just continue as a line throughout It's foreshadowing for what's coming. What will happen?
He continued on his journey, paddling his outrigger canoe and reading the lapping of the waves to judge his position. Those waves were as good as a compass for him. Once they would have been good enough for any of the Elakin, his people. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a fun read for a first time. I can tell. These days, just the trappers learned the old arts. Admittedly, though, even he carried one of the newest compasses, wrapped up in his pack with a set of the new sea charts, maps given as gifts by the ones above during their visit earlier in the year. They were said to be more accurate than even the latest surveys, so he'd purchased a set just in case. You could not stop times from changing, his mother said, no more than you could stop the surf from rolling. It was not long after the accounting of tides before he caught sight of the first island. Sori was a small island in the Pantheon and the most commonly visited. Her name meant child. Dusk vividly remembered training on her shores with his uncle. It had been long since he'd burned an offering to Sori, despite how well she had treated him during his youth. Perhaps a small offering would not be out of line. Patchi would not grow jealous. One could not be jealous of Sori, the least of the islands. Just as every trapper was welcome on Sori, every other island in the Pantheon was said to be affectionate of her.
Okay, so islands are gods, really, to them?
Yes. And so the islands are referred to as Pantheon. So Sori seems to be both the name of the island and the name of the god. So is the island the god, or is it just a representation of the god?
It seems one and the same.
Yeah.
She had treated him well, despite how well she had treated him during his youth. And they all have affection for Sori. So yeah, that seems like the islands themselves are the gods.
Cool. So it's the personification of the island.
Mm-hmm.
Be that as it may, Sori did not contain much valuable game. Dusk continued rowing, moving down one leg of the archipelago. Dusk continued rowing, moving down one of the archipelago. His people knew as the Pantheon. From a distance, this archipelago was not so different from the home isles of the Elakin, now a 3-week trip behind him. From a distance, up close, they were very, very different. Over the next 5 hours, Dusk rowed past Sori, then her 3 cousins. He had never set foot on any of those 3. In fact, he had not landed on many of the 40-some islands in the Pantheon. At the end of his apprenticeship, a trapper chose one island and worked there all his life. He had chosen Patchi, an event some 10 years past now. Seemed like far less. Dusk saw no other shadows beneath the waves, but he kept watch. Not that he could do much to protect himself. Kokur Lee did all of that work as he roosted happily at the prow of the ship, eyes half closed. Dusk had fed him seed. Kokur Lee did like it so much more than dried fruit. Nobody knew why beasts like the shadows only lived there. Perhaps I should have warmed up a bit more. It's fine.
You're okay. It's live.
Nobody knew why beasts like the shadows only lived here, in the waters near the Pantheon. Why not travel across the seas to the Elakin Islands or the mainland, where food would be plentiful and aviar, like Kokurli, were far more rare? Once these questions had not been asked. The seas were what they were. Now, however, men poked and prodded into everything. They asked, why? They said, we should explain it. Dusk shook his head, dipping his paddle into the water. That sound, wood on water, had been his companion for most of his days. He understood it far better than he did the speech of men, even if sometimes their questions got inside of him and refused to go free. After
Bit
the
of a loner
cousins,
dude.
go on.
Just a reminder, guys. I interrupt Dorcas because this is transformative. If you guys are irritated with the interruptions, just understand that's what they're there for. It's transformative. Otherwise, we are just an audiobook. And yeah, so no, I'm just saying that it seems like even for one of his people, he's a loner.
Yeah.
Doesn't really enjoy people.
So much so that he's like not comfortable with language.
Yeah, he preferred that.
Yeah. After the cousins, most trappers would have turned north or south, moving along branches of the archipelago until reaching their chosen island. Dusk continued forward into the heart of the islands until a shape loomed before him. Pachi, largest island of the Pantheon. It towered like a wedge rising from the sea, a place of inhospitable peaks, sharp cliffs, and deep jungle. Hello, old destroyer, he thought. Hello, father. Hello, father.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Yes, it's archipelago.
Archipelago.
I didn't know it was going to come up this much, so I was just like, let him. Like, I'm not going to stop him. Yeah. He's so I suppose with these islands they have their characteristics. So we've got a small island that's like a child. So we've got the biggest island, which is the father. Makes sense.
Yes. Dusk raised his paddle and placed it in the boat. He sat for a time, chewing on fish from last night's catch, feeding scraps to Sack. The black-plumed bird ate them with an air of solemnity. Coquerly continued to sit on the prow, chirping occasionally. He would be eager to land. Sack seemed never to grow eager about anything. Approaching Pachi was not a simple task, even for one who trapped his shores. The boat continued its dance with the waves as Dusk considered which landing to make. Eventually, he put the fish away, then dipped his paddle back into the waters. Those waters remained deep and blue despite the proximity to the island. Some members of the Pantheon had sheltered bays and gradual beaches. Pachi had no patience for such foolishness. His beaches were rocky and had steep drop-offs. You were never safe on his shores. In fact, the beaches were the most dangerous part. Upon them, not only could the horrors of the land get to you, but you were still within reach of the deep's monsters. Dusk's uncle had cautioned him about this time and time again. Only a fool slept on Pachi's shores. The tide was with him, and he avoided being caught in any of the swells that would crush him against those stern rock faces. Dusk approached a partially sheltered expanse of stone crags and outcroppings, Pachi's version of a beach. Coquerly fluttered off, chirping and calling as he flew toward the trees. Okay, so he's landing at this very, very dangerous island.
This is the island that so did you catch that they as part of like their culture they don't go to other islands. They work on a certain island that they choose for the rest of their life, and this is the one that he chose. So yeah, that he knows this place. It's dangerous, but this is the one he chose.
Yeah. We don't have a Y yet, correct?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, it's let me go back a little. We've got, where is it? Where did he say it? Yeah, but it's just not so long ago. Who would think that islands could be jealous? they've got. Who would think islands could have anything, any feeling? But they've got a spirit, which it makes sense.
Look, I'm sure it's a wonderful island full of harmless dodo birds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dusk immediately glanced at the waters. No shadows. Still, he felt naked as he hopped out of the canoe and pulled it up onto the rocks, warm water washing against his legs. Sock remained in her place on Dusk's shoulder. Nearby in the surf, Dusk saw a corpse bobbing in the water.
Oh, lovely. Wow, thanks for that. Hello? Oh, yeah, there's a corpse. Okay.
Just bobbing there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so nice. Beginning your visions early, my friend, he thought, glancing at Sock. The AVR usually waited until they'd fully landed before bestowing her blessing. The black-feathered bird just watched the waves. Dusk continued his work. The body he saw in the surf was his own. It told him to avoid that section of water. The body he saw in the surf was his own.
Okay, it's a vision, and this what's the name? This suck AVR, it bestows some sort of what do you like some sort of vision of the future, or well, not the future. It's just of a warning. It's an omen. So he's like, okay, well, if that's my body over there, that means I'm gonna stay away from it. It's really cool.
There is danger here. It's a scary island.
But he's not, doesn't seem that scared of it. He's just like, oh, it's mine. It told him to avoid that section of water. Okay, that's it. That's all it is. Okay, this is not unusual, apparently.
Dusk continued his work. The body he saw in the surf was his own. It told him to avoid that section of water. Perhaps there was a spiny anemone that would have pricked him, or perhaps a deceptive undercurrent lay in wait. Sock's visions did not show such detail. They gave only warning. Dusk got the boat out of the water, then detached the floats, tying them more securely onto the main part of the canoe. Following that, he worked the vessel carefully up the shore, mindful not to scrape the hull on sharp rocks. He would need to hide the canoe in the jungle. If another trapper discovered it, Dusk would be stranded on the island for several extra weeks preparing his spare. That would... He stopped as his heel struck something soft as he backed up the shore. He glanced down, expecting a pile of seaweed. Instead, he found a damp piece of cloth. A shirt? Dusk held it up and noticed other, more subtle signs across the shore. Broken lengths of sanded wood, bits of paper floating in an eddy. Those fools, he thought. He returned to moving his canoe. Rushing was never a good idea on a Pantheon island. He did step more quickly, however. As he reached
which fools are we talking about? What those fools? Tell us! Okay, I mean, obviously, if I stop interrupting, then we'll get there quicker. But
ominous.
Just commentary. Yeah.
So, quick question, though. There are the Pantheon Islands, and then there are the islands of Dusk's home, right? Is that what was established?
No, I don't think it was that they're separate. There's a mainland, and I think that's where they live, and then they trap on the islands of the Pantheon.
Okay, got it. Cool. Those fools, he thought. He returned to moving his canoe. Rushing was never a good idea on a Pantheon island. He did step more quickly, however. As he reached the tree line, he caught sight of his corpse hanging from a tree nearby. Those were cutaway vines lurking in the fern-like treetop. Sock squawked softly on his shoulder as Dusk hefted a large stone from the beach, then tossed it at the tree. It thumped against the wood, and sure enough, the vines dropped like a net full of stinging barbs.
Woo! This whole place is trying to kill you. What's the point? They are separate. He mentioned his home was 3 weeks away. Okay, thanks, Zubis.
Thank you. Yeah, what alliteration. Sock squawked. Softly. They would take a few hours to retract. Dusk pulled his canoe over and hid it in the underbrush near the tree. Hopefully, other trappers would be smart enough to stay away from the cutaway vines, and therefore wouldn't stumble over his boat. Before placing the final camouflaging fronds, Dusk pulled out his pack. Though the centuries had changed a trapper's duties very little, the modern world did offer its benefits. Instead of a simple wrap that left his legs and chest exposed, he put on thick trousers with pockets on the legs and a buttoning shirt to protect his skin against the sharp branches and leaves. Instead of sandals, Dusk tied on sturdy boots, and instead of a tooth-lined club, he bore a machete of the finest steel. His pack contained luxuries like a steel-hooked rope, a lantern, and a fire starter that created sparks simply by pressing the two handles together.
Modern.
Yeah. A harsh land produces very independent people, very autonomous.
What's interesting, I want to understand the why of it seems like if another trapper finds your boat, they will destroy it. What the hell? How does that work?
Steal it.
Or steal that. I'm okay. So it's not like a very peaceful bunch of people. Weird.
Possibly dangerous, running into unexpected people in the dangerous jungle. I would like to know what it is that they are trapping. Are they trapping more birds? Are they after other things?
Game? But there's not that much
meat
game
for food.
Yeah.
He looked very little like the trappers in the paintings back home. He didn't mind. He'd rather stay alive. Dusk left the canoe, shouldering his pack, machete sheathed at his side. Sock moved to his other shoulder. Before leaving the beach, Dusk paused, looking at the image of his translucent corpse, still hanging from unseen vines by the tree. And then I had to go back and re-look at that picture to see if there were anyone hanging from a tree, and there is, but I don't think this is the scene from the picture.
But there's a lot. Now I'm beginning to think all of the dead in that picture is him.
Well,
they're all him.
Yeah, actually, now that you say that, all of the faces, all of the hair looks suspiciously like him. Oh dear. Oh dear.
All the different kinds. So it's just, this is all the warnings.
Okay. Maybe don't go to the scary island.
Again, we're trying to tell us why any of this.
Dusk left the canoe, shouldering his pack, machete sheathed at his side. Sock moved to his other shoulder. Before leaving the beach, Dusk paused, looking at the images of the translucent corpse, still hanging from unseen vines by the tree. Could he really have ever been so foolish? Could he really have ever been foolish enough to be caught by cutaway vines? Near as he could tell, Sock only showed him plausible deaths. He liked to think that most were fairly unlikely, a vision of what could have happened if he'd been careless, or if his uncle's training hadn't been so extensive. Once, Dusk had stayed away from any place where he saw his corpse. It wasn't bravery that drove him to do the opposite now. He just needed to confront the possibilities. He needed to be able to walk away from this beach knowing that he could still deal with cutaway vines. If he avoided danger, he would soon lose his skills. He could not rely on Sock too much. I like that.
So, makes sense of why he's nonplussed by just these okay, this is a warning, this is the warning. He's not like, oh my god, it's me, dead. Yeah.
It's really good characterization, and I feel like now I'm actually finally comprehending the visions a little bit better. For Pachi would try on every possible occasion to kill him. Dusk turned and trudged across the rocks along the coast. Doing so went against his instincts. He normally wanted to get inland as soon as possible. Unfortunately, he could not leave without investigating the origin of the debris he had seen earlier. He had a strong suspicion of where he would find their source. He gave a whistle, and Kokurli trilled above, flapping out of a tree nearby and winging over the beach. The protection he offered would not be as strong as it would be if he were close, but the beasts that hunted mines on the island were not as large or as strong of psyche as the shadows of the ocean. Dusk and Sock would be invisible to them. The protection he offered... So there are things that hunt mines, is what I got from that.
Yeah, he spoke earlier on when they were talking about the shadow beneath the waves, whatever. The way that these things hunt is not by scent; it's by sensing the mind of creatures. So it seems like that's true for beasts on the land as well.
Yeah. About a half hour up the coast, Dusk found the remnants of a large camp. Broken boxes, fraying ropes lying half submerged in tidal pools, ripped canvas, shattered pieces of wood that might once have been walls. Kokurli landed on a broken pole. How do you even realize that a beast hunts specifically mines?
Yeah, I don't know. How do we know that? Oh, well, you know what? We just do, okay?
Psychic attacks.
Yeah, you know, but how do you know? How do you figure that out scientifically? That's what I'm saying. Like, because you just be like, yeah, okay, my scent.
Well, if there are birds that can show you visions, it makes sense that there are other things that can show you visions. And if being psychic, for lack of a better term, exists, why wouldn't there be things that, say, feed off of psychic energy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared. Don't go to the island. There were no signs of his corpse nearby. That could mean that the area wasn't immediately dangerous. It could also mean that whatever might kill him here would swallow the corpse whole.
Oh, that's quite an interesting flaw in the visions. It's just like, okay, so your death has to be visible. Your body has to be visible completely. Like it's so if it's swallowed whole, oh well, the bird's trying to tell you, but it's just not going to work. That's very clever.
But also, be wary of positive visions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because not everything that's bad for you is going to appear scary. Some very bad things will appear very good.
But this one, the vision that this particular bird does is just give you possible deaths. This is what he does.
Right. So, well, the bird is on Dusk's side, but that doesn't mean there aren't psychic things out there that will try and mess with him. Dusk trod lightly on wet stones at the edge of the broken campsite. No, larger than a campsite. Dusk ran his fingers over a broken chunk of wood stenciled with the words Northern Interests Trading Company, a powerful mercantile force from his homeland. He had told them, do not come to Pachi, fools. And they had camped here on the beach itself. What?
And these are the fools. So, because he was like, those fools. When he saw the papers and things, he was like, those fools. So I'm like, which fools? Here they are.
Yeah. Hubris. Maybe he's on a rescue mission?
He didn't expect them to be here. He's told them not to.
Yeah, that's true. Was nobody in that company capable of listening? He stopped beside a group of gouges in the rocks, as wide as his upper arm, running some 10 paces along. He stopped beside a group of gouges in the rocks, as wide as his upper arm, running some paces... He stopped beside a group of gouges in the rocks, as wide as his upper arm, running some 10 paces long. They led toward the ocean. Shadows, he thought. One of the deep beasts. His uncle had spoken of seeing one once, an enormous something that had exploded up from the depths. It had killed a dozen krell that had been chewing on oceanside weeds before retreating into the waters with its feast. Dusk shivered. Imagining this camp on the rocks, bustling with men unpacking boxes, preparing to build the fort they had described to him. But where was their ship? The great steam-powered vessel with an iron hull they claimed could rebuff the attacks of even the deepest of shadows. Did it now defend the ocean bottom, a home for slimfish and octopus? There were no survivors, nor even any corpses that Dusk could see.
All eaten.
All eaten. The shadow must have consumed them. He pulled back to the slightly safer locale of the jungle's edge, then scanned the foliage, looking for signs that people had passed this way. The attack was recent, within the last day or so. He absently gave Sock a seed from his pocket as he located a series of broken fronds leading into the jungle. So there were survivors, maybe as many as a half dozen. They had each chosen to go in a different direction, in a hurry, running from the attack. Ooh, don't split the party.
Well, it was every man for himself, because the shadow thing was chasing them. Or something.
Running through the jungle was a good way to get dead. These company types thought themselves rugged and prepared. They were wrong. He'd spoken to a number of them, trying to persuade as many of their trappers as possible to abandon the voyage. It had done no good. He wanted to blame the visits of the ones above for causing this foolish striving for progress, but the truth was the companies had been talking of outposts on the Pantheon for years. Dusk sighed. While these survivors were likely dead now, he should leave them to their fates. Except, the thought of it, outsiders on Pachi, it made him shiver with something that mixed disgust and anxiety. They were here. It was wrong. These islands were sacred, the trappers, their priests.
Okay, so it's like, I need to, the ones above are great. Okay. He's like, yeah, it's the kind of, I kind of want to save them so that they can get off my island. Not that they're on my island, like our island, basically. But yeah, it's not about saving people, it's about saving the island from the people. Get it?
Yep. The plants rustled nearby. Dusk whipped his machete about, leveling it, reaching into his pocket for his sling. It was not a refugee who left the bushes, or even a predator. A group of small, mouse-like creatures crawled out, sniffing the air. Sock squawked. She had never liked meekers. Food? The 3 meekers sent to Dusk. Food? Ooh!
Okay,
meat.
we got telepathy.
Psychic mice. Food? The 3 meekers sent to Dusk. Food? It was the most rudimentary of thoughts, projected directly into his mind. Though he did not want the distraction, he did not pass up the opportunity to fish out some dried meat for the meekers. As they huddled around it, sending him gratitude, he saw their sharp teeth and the single-pointed fang at the tips of their mouths. His uncle had told him that once, meekers had been dangerous to men. One bite was enough to kill. Over the centuries, the little creatures had grown accustomed to trappers. They had minds beyond those of dull animals. Almost he found them as intelligent as the aviar.
Okay.
You remember? He sent them through thoughts. You remember your task? Others! They sent back gleefully. Bite others! Oh,
Bite the outsiders.
Yeah, bite the outsiders. Is that him saying to bite these would-be trappers?
I suppose others, yeah.
Or is it the monsters that would potentially hunt him? Either way, I am all about being a friend to the mice. Trappers ignored these little beasts. Dusk figured that maybe with some training, the meekers could provide an unexpected surprise for one of his rivals. Nice, smart, clever. I like Dusk.
Okay, so it's other trappers. It's just anyone that isn't him. Okay.
He fished in his pocket, fingers brushing an old stiff piece of feather. Then, Not wanting to pass up the opportunity, he got a few long bright green and red feathers from his pack. They were mating plumes, which he'd taken from Kokir Lee during the aviar's most recent molting. He moved into the jungle, Meekers following with excitement. Once he neared their den, he stuck the mating plumes into some branches as if they had fallen there naturally. A passing trapper might see the plumes and assume that Aviar had a nest nearby, fresh with eggs for the plunder. That would draw them. Bite others, Dusk instructed again. Bite others, they replied. He hesitated, thoughtful. Had they perhaps seen something from the company wreck? Point him in the right direction. Have you seen any others? Dusk sent them. Recently, in the jungle. Fight others, came the reply. They were intelligent, but not that intelligent.
Clearly.
Dusk bade the animal... What?
Said clearly.
Yeah. Look, tiny brains. There's only so much that you can get. Rats actually are very intelligent, though. Best pets. I used to have pet rats. I loved them so
did Allie. She also had 2. Yeah.
Nice. I had 3 Patches, Solaire, and Ash, named after Dark Souls characters or themes.
Allie had mac and cheese.
Oh, I love that.
Rude, Dusk, not cool. He's being rude, calling them stupid, Gladys.
Oh. And if he's thinking it, they can hear it.
He's not sending it. It's okay.
Okay. They were intelligent, but not that intelligent. Dusk bade the animals farewell and turned toward the forest. After a moment's deliberation, he found himself striking inland, crossing, then following one of the refugee trails. He chose the one that looked as if it would pass uncomfortably close to one of his own safe camps, deep within the jungle. It was hotter here beneath the jungle's canopy, despite the shade. Comfortably sweltering, Kokir Lee joined him, winging up ahead to a branch where a few lesser aviar sat chirping.
How does how can you be? Sorry, what was the comfortably sweltering? That's for you. Okay, okay, whatever.
Who doesn't love a good swelter now again and again? Yeah. Kokir Lee towered over them, but sang at them with enthusiasm. An aviar raised around humans never quite fit back in among their own kind. The same could be said of a man raised around aviar. Interesting. Very interesting.
So it's making us again remember he's a bit of an outsider as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for animals kept in captivity to struggle when being released, and it's a problem that rescues have, I think. And clearly these birds are very intelligent and magical in nature, so if that mirror is such that Dusk and people raised around them also have a similar effect. I like it.
I do like. I've put a little bracket around the quote, Gladys, in pencil, just to let you guys know. Relax.
An aviar raised around humans never quite fit back in among their own kind. The same could be said of a man raised around aviar. Dusk followed the trail left by the refugee, expecting to stumble over the man's corpse at any moment. He did not, though his own dead body did occasionally appear along the path. He saw it lying half-eaten in the mud or tucked away in a fallen log with only the foot showing. He could never grow too complacent, with Sock on his shoulder. It did not matter if Sock's visions were truth or fiction. He needed the constant reminder of how Patji treated the unaware. He fell into the familiar but not comfortable lope of a Pantheon trapper, alert, wary, careful not to brush leaves that could carry biting insects, cutting with the machete only when necessary, lest he leave a trail another could follow, listening, aware of his aviar at all times, never outstripping Kokir Lee or letting him drift too far ahead. The refugee did not fall to the common dangers of the island. He cut across game trails, rather than following them. The surest way to encounter predators was to fall in with their food. The refugee did not know how to mask his trail, but neither did he blunder into the nest of fire-snap lizards, or brush the deathweed bark, or step into the patch of hungry mud. Was this
Okay,
another...
Oh, there we go. Was this another trap? Okay, I was like, how's this person knows this place? Okay.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's the girl in the fan art, by the
Mhm.
way. That's my prediction right there.
Hmm.
Was this another trapper, perhaps? A youthful one, not fully trained. That seems something the company would try. Experienced trappers were beyond recruitment. None would be foolish enough to guide a group of clerks and merchants around the islands. But a youth who had not yet chosen his island? A youth who perhaps resented being required to practice only on Sori until his mentor determined his apprenticeship complete? Dusk had felt that way 10 years ago. Okay, that's really interesting. So these trappers practice on Sori. Sori is the beginner island, so to speak. And then once they are old enough to handle their own, they pick a specific island, I guess, to be some sort of specialist in.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I get from it.
I like that. That's neat. And Dusk happens to have picked a very dangerous island, it seems.
I'm feeling like all of the islands are dangerous, but this is the most dangerous.
Yeah. So the company had hired itself a trapper at last. That would explain why they had grown so bold as to finally organize their expedition. But Pachi himself? He thought, kneeling beside the bank of a small stream. It had no name, but it was familiar to him. Why would they come here? The answer was simple. They were merchants. The biggest to them would be the best. Why waste time on lesser islands? Why not come for the father himself? Above.
Yeah.
Kokur.
What's on here that they want though? Tell us.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like he suspects it's just classic hubris. Yeah.
Yeah, but I suppose they're just searching for, I don't know. Yeah, what do you prospect on islands for? You're looking for minerals and things. It's not just game. It's like mining and things like that.
I'm just waiting for King Kong to make an appearance.
I'm feeling like it's the same sort of company that the okay, although Tarzan's jungle's not this scary, but I'm feeling Tarzan vibes from the.
Oh yeah. Excellent, great comparison. It was beauty that killed the beast. Okay. Above, Cokerly landed on a branch and began pecking at a fruit. The refugee had stopped by this river. Dusk had gained some time on the youth, judging by the depth the boy's footprints had sunk in the mud. Dusk could imagine his weight and height. 16, maybe younger? Trappers apprenticed at 10, but Dusk could not imagine even the company trying to recruit one so ill-trained. They're trying to throw a surprise party for Dusk's birthday. Very Tarzan. What's the name of the villain in Tarzan? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I just remember Kerchak. He's not the main villain. He's just scary.
Yeah.
Clayton.
That's the one.
Because I just remember him going, Clayton.
2 hours gone, Dusk thought, turning a broken stem and smelling the sap. The boy's path continued on toward Dusk's safe camp. How? Dusk had never spoken of it to anyone. Perhaps this youth was apprenticing under one of the other trappers who visited Pachi. One of them could have found his safe camp and mentioned it. Hey, Rosales!
Hey, Rosales!
Thanks for stopping by.
Ooh, I got it right. It is Clayton. Yeah.
Yes. Dusk frowned, considering. In 10 years on Pachi, he had seen another trapper in person only a handful of times. On each occasion, they had both turned and gone a different direction without saying a word. It was the way of such things. They would try to kill one another, but they didn't do it in person. Better to let Pachi claim rivals than to directly stain one's hands. At least, so his uncle had taught him. I have to reread that sentence, because that seems important.
Mm-hmm.
They would try to kill one another, but they didn't do it in person. Better to let Pachi claim rivals than to directly stain one's hands. At least so his uncle had taught him.
So you don't directly go and like kill someone, you just make their lives more difficult so that they can be killed by the island.
It is poor form.
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean that they don't want their rivals dead. It's just poor form to kill them.
Yeah, manually. You've got to let the island take them. Some sort of weird honor system.
Okay.
It's silly because it's like, yeah, you're still the reason somebody died, son. But it's like, oh well, that's the way we're supposed to do it. Don't stain your hands directly.
No good Samaritan laws on Pachi.
Nope.
Sometimes Dusk found himself frustrated by that. Pachi would get them all eventually. Why help the father out? Still, it was the way of things, so he went through the motions. Regardless, this refugee was making directly for Dusk's safe camp. The youth might not know the proper way of things. Perhaps he had come seeking help, afraid to go to one of his master's safe camps for fear of punishment. Or... no, best to avoid pondering it. Dusk already had a mind full of spurious conjectures. He would find what he would find. He had to focus on the jungle and its dangers. He started away from the stream, and as he did so, he saw his corpse appear suddenly before him. He hopped forward, then spun backward, hearing a faint hiss. The distinctive sound was made by air escaping from a small break in the ground, followed by a flood of tiny yellow insects, each as small as a pinhead.
Nope.
A new death ant pod? If he'd stood there a little longer, disturbing their hidden nest, they would have flooded up around his boot. One bite, and he'd be dead.
Seems great. I don't like insects.
Oh no. I suspect you're going to have a very hard time with this book then. He stared at that pool of scrambling insects longer than he should have. They pulled back into their nest, finding no prey. Sometimes a small bulge announced their location, but today he had seen nothing. Only Sock's vision had saved him. Such was life on Pachi. Even the most careful trapper could make a mistake, and even if they didn't, death could still find them. Pachi was a domineering, vengeful parent who sought the blood of all who landed on his shores.
Again, why do we go there?
Oh, poor kitty. Sock chirped on his shoulder. Dusk rubbed her neck in thanks, though her chirp sounded apologetic. The warning had come almost too late. Without her, Pachi would have claimed him this day. Dusk shoved down those itching questions he should not be thinking and continued on his way. He finally approached his safe camp as evening settled upon the island. 2 of his tripwires had been cut, disarming them. That was not surprising. Those were meant to be obvious. Dusk crept past another death ant nest in the ground. This larger one had a permanent crack as an opening they could flood out of, but the rift had been stoppered with a smoldering twig. Beyond it, the night wind fungi that Dusk had spent years cultivating here had been smothered in water to keep the spores from escaping. The next 2 tripwires, the ones not intended to be obvious, had also been cut.
Okay. So,
I wonder
are trappers just trapping each other? Unobtainium.
Unobtainium. Ooh, yeah. I'm sure. I am getting Australia vibes from the insects. How
from
did
the
we
insects,
ever?
but not the jungle.
Nice work, kid, Dusk thought. He hadn't just avoided the traps, but disarmed them. in case he needed to flee quickly back this direction. However, someone really needed to teach the boy how to move without being trackable. Of course, those tracks could be a trap unto themselves, an attempt to make Dusk himself careless, and so he was extra careful as he edged forward. Yes, here the youth had left more footprints, broken stems, and other signs. Something moved up above in the canopy. Dusk hesitated, squinting. A woman hung from the tree branches above, trapped in a net made of jelly wire vines. They left someone numb, unable to move. So one of his traps had finally worked.
Hello?
This is very Australia. Say that again, cadet, please.
Hello?
She said. A woman, Dusk thought, suddenly feeling stupid. The smaller footprints, the lighter step.
I want to make it perfectly clear. I have no
The
intention.
woman said.
Sorry. I want to make it perfectly clear. The woman said.
The woman said.
I have no intention of stealing your birds or infringing upon your territory.
I already like this woman. Excellent.
Very to the point.
Introduction. Yeah. Direct, important, addresses the elephant in the room. She's great. Dusk stepped closer in the dimming light. He recognized this woman. She was one of the clerks who had been at his meetings with the company. You cut my tripwires, Dusk said. Words felt odd in his mouth, and they came out ragged, as if he'd swallowed handfuls of dust, the result of weeks without speaking.
Yes, I did. I assumed you could replace them.
She hesitated.
Sorry?
Dusk settled back. The woman rotated slowly in her net, and he noticed an aviar clinging to the outside. Like his own birds, it was about as tall as 3 fists atop one another, though this one had subdued white and green plumage. A streamer, which was a breed that did not live on Pachi. He did not know much about them, He did not know much about them, other than that, like Cokerlee, they protected the mind from predators. Just breaking into your house, not stealing anything, though, I swear. Humor. In all of this danger, there's humor.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really nice contrast. The setting sun cast.
Sorry, like if you're talking about the humor, I'm laughing at just the fact that she's like in this swinging. It's comical. She's in this like swinging net thing, and she's like just talking to him. I think it's just. I'm imagining the way this looks. It's pretty funny.
The setting sun cast shadows, the sky darkening. Soon he would need to hunker down for the night, for darkness brought out the island's most dangerous of predators.
I promise,
the woman said from within her bindings. What was her name? He believed it had been told to him, but he did not recall. Something untraditional.
I really don't want to steal from you. You remember me, don't you? We met back in the company halls.
He gave no reply.
Please,
she said.
I'd really rather not be hung by my ankles from a tree, slathered with blood to attract predators, if it's all the same to you.
You are not a trapper.
Well, no. You may have noticed my gender.
There have been female trappers.
One female trapper. Yalani the Brave. I've heard her story 100 times. You may find it curious to know that almost every society has a myth of the female role reversal. She goes to war dressed as a man, or leads her father's armies into battle, or traps on an island. I'm convinced that such stories exist so that parents can tell their daughters, you are not Yalani.
This woman spoke a lot.
Yeah, that's how it be.
This woman spoke a lot. People did that back on the Elakan Islands. Her skin was dark, like his, and she had the sound of his people, the slight accent to her voice.
No,
He
I'm
had
not
heard
doing
it more and
The slight accent is the South African accent, okay?
See, but I can't do a South African accent.
It's there. Promise.
It's there. I promise. No, can't do it. Look, there's some that I can slip into more easily than others. South African's not one. Okay, gosh, where was I? The slight accent to her voice. He had heard it more and more when visiting the home isles. It was the accent of one who was educated.
Can I get down?
She asked, voice bearing a faint tremor.
I can feel my hands. It
Cannot.
is unsettling. Oh, sorry. I cannot feel my hands. It is unsettling.
What is your name? Dusk asked. I have forgotten it. This was too much speaking. It hurt his ears. This place was supposed to be soft.
Vati.
That's right. It was an improper name. Not a reference to her birth order and day of birth, but a name like the mainlanders used. That was not uncommon among his people now. Okay, that's a cool naming convention.
So Dusk is it's his name. It's the
Around the
main-
time he was born.
Mm-hmm. Her birth order and day of birth. Okay. So sixth of the Dusk. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his full name.
Neat.
Mm-hmm.
He walked over and took the rope from the nearby tree, then lowered the net. The woman's AVR flapped down, screeching in annoyance, favoring one wing, obviously wounded. Vati? Did you say Vati?
Vati, yeah.
Vati. Roll credits! Vati hit the ground, a bundle of dark curls and green linen skirts. She stumbled to her feet, but fell back down again. Her skin would be numb for some 15 minutes from the touch of the vines. She sat there and wagged her hands as if to shake out the numbness.
Where are we at? Sorry. So, no ankles and blood?
She asked, hopeful. That is a story parents tell to children, Dusk said. It is not something we actually do.
Oh.
If you had been another trapper, I would have killed you directly rather than leaving you to avenge yourself upon me. He walked over to her AVR, which opened its beak in a hissing posture, raising both wings as if to be bigger than it was. Sock chirped from his shoulder, but the bird didn't seem to care. Yes, one wing was bloody. Vati knew enough to care for the bird, however, which was pleasing. Some home islers were completely ignorant of their AVR's needs, treating them like accessories rather than intelligent creatures.
I like Vati because she's taking care of her birdie.
Yeah. Definitely a unique way of naming children. Yes. Vati had pulled out the feathers near the wound, including a blood feather. She'd wrapped the wound with gauze. That wing didn't look good, however. Might be a fracture involved. He'd want to wrap both wings, prevent the creature from flying.
Oh, Miris. I tried to help her. We fell, you see, when the monster...
Pick her up, Dusk said, checking the sky. Follow. Step where I step. Vati nodded, not complaining, though her numbness would not have passed yet. She collected a small pack from the vines and straightened her skirts. She wore a tight vest above them, and the pack had some kind of metal tube sticking out of it. A map case? She fetched her AVR, who huddled happily on her shoulder. As Dusk led the way, she followed, and she did not attempt to attack him when his back was turned. Good. Darkness was coming upon them, but his safe camp was just ahead, and he knew by heart the steps to approach along this path. As they walked, Coker Lee fluttered down and landed on the woman's other shoulder, then began chirping in an amiable way.
Okay, so Coker Lee likes her.
Yeah, That's nice to see. I'm liking the odd couple juxtaposition, the contrast. Dusk stopped, turning. The woman's own aviar moved down her dress away from Cokerly to cling near her bodice. The bird hissed softly, but Cokerly, oblivious as usual, continued to chirp happily. It was fortunate his breed was so mind-invisible. Even death ants would consider him no more edible than a piece of bark.
Cool. So yeah, that's mind invisible, right? So it's like having no scent, undetectable.
Yes. In Order of the Stick, which is a D&D webcomic, which I highly recommend, there's a panel, I think somewhere in the first 100 issues, in which a mind flayer or an illithid or a knockoff version of it is determining which of the party members to eat. And in his mind, he imagines the wizard looks like a banquet, a delicious meal, and the bard, who used intelligence as his dump stat, looked like a Diet Coke or some very unappetizing thing. That's kind of what this brings to mind.
Is this
Vati said, looking to Dusk.
Yours? But of course, the one on your shoulder is not aviar.
Sock settled back, puffing up her feathers. No, her species was not aviar. Dusk continued to lead the way.
Ah, so she understands.
He's a derpy bird. Dusk continued to lead the way.
I've never seen a trapper carry a bird who is not from the islands,
Vati said from behind. It was not a question. Dusk, therefore, felt no need to reply. I like Dusk. This safe camp, he had 3 total on the island, lay atop a short hill following a twisting trail. Here, a stout gura tree held aloft a single-room structure. Trees were one of the safer places to sleep on Pachi. The treetops were the domain of the aviar, and most of the large predators walked. Dusk lit his lantern, then held it aloft, letting the orange light bathe his home. Up, he said to the woman. She glanced over her shoulder into the darkening jungle. By the lantern light, he saw that the whites of her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Despite the unconcerned smile she gave him before climbing up the stakes he'd planted in the tree, her numbness should have worn off by now. How did you know? He asked. Vati hesitated near the trapdoor leading into his home.
No what?
Where my safe camp was. Who told you?
I followed the sound of water,
she said, nodding toward the small spring that bubbled out of the mountainside here.
When I found traps, I knew I was coming the right way.
Dusk makes Vin look like an extrovert. Dusk frowned. One could not hear this water as the stream vanished only a few hundred yards away, resurfacing in an unexpected location. Following it here, that would be virtually impossible. So was she lying, or was she just lucky? You wanted to find me, he said.
Wanted to find someone,
she said, pushing open the trapdoor, voice growing muffled as she climbed up into the building.
I figured that a trapper would be my only chance for survival.
Above, she stepped up to one of the netted windows, Cokerly still on her shoulder.
This is nice. Very roomy for a shack on a mountainside in the middle of a deadly jungle, on an isolated island, surrounded by monsters.
Not unintelligent. Dusk climbed up, holding the lantern in his teeth. The room at the top was perhaps 4 paces square, tall enough to stand in, but only barely. "Shake out those blankets," he said, nodding toward the stack and setting down the lantern. "Then lift every cup and bowl on the shelf and check inside of them." Her eyes widened.
What am I looking for?
"Death ants, scorpions, spiders, blood scratches," he shrugged, putting a sack on her perch by the window. "The room is built to be tight, but this is Pachi. The father likes surprises." As she hesitantly set aside her pack and got to work, Dusk continued up another ladder to check the roof. There, a group of bird-sized boxes, with nests inside and holes to allow the birds to come and go freely, lay arranged in a double row. The animals would not stray far, except on special occasions, now that they had been raised with him handling them. Cokerly landed on top of one of the homes, trilling, but softly, now that night had fallen. More coos and chirps came from the other boxes. Dusk climbed out to check each bird for hurt wings or feet. These aviar pairs were his life's work. The chicks, each one hatched, became his primary stock in trade. Yes, he would trap on the island, trying to find nests and wild chicks, but that was never as efficient as raising nests.
Okay, so that's what
Okay.
we're trapping.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Sanderson has such a great way of making his scenes play out like a movie in your mind.
Very smooth.
Yes. You have a line, Kitty.
Your name was Sixth, wasn't it? Sorry, I'm getting water.
sure
That my audio is weird.
All right. Well, I will wait for you to retrieve your water, and I'll take this brief intermission to say that most likely sometime next week, I'm going to be doing a stream about the Dragonbone Chair. So I finished the first book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I thought it would be enjoyable to perhaps make some sort of diagram, dare I say it, of the things that I noted that were clearly utilized in the Game of Thrones series. So look forward to that, folks. And
almost done.
Cool. This sounds like the most fantasy book to ever fantasy.
The Dragonbone
Chair. It is very fantasy. It kind of harkens back to old school fantasy. It a lot of people seem to compare it to Tolkien,
it's
which
whimsical.
I can see. Yeah,
it's whimsical. And
welcome back, Kitty.
I love it. Hi. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for the intermission.
You're welcome.
Your name
We now
was...
return.
We now return to... Your name
regularly.
Was Sixth, wasn't it?
Vati said from below, voice accompanied by the sound of a blanket being shaken. It is.
Large family.
Vati noted. An ordinary family, or so it had once been. His father had been a 12th, and his mother an 11th. Okay, so it's the number of siblings you have.
Yeah, it's the number you're at is the it's the number of children. So like if you're born 6th, that's your name.
Okay, but look, hear me out. Decimus, Septimius, Octavian. Just
it works.
Pointing
yeah.
that one at. Yeah.
But now Octavian, is that was that used for like the 8th child?
That one I don't think so, but maybe. I mean, it could have been. I mean, I don't know. I doubt that the actual Octavian was the 8th. I don't know. Anyway, 6 of what? Vati prompted below. Not I guess miss. If you know, you know. Oh no! What don't I know?
We don't know, which is fine. Leave it. Leave it.
An
Carl,
ordinary
you are Carl. Stop it. S.
an ordinary
If you know,
family.
you know. Ick yourself. Okay, sorry.
An ordinary family, or so it had once been. His father had been a 12th, and his mother an 11th.
6th of what?
Vati prompted below. Of the dusk,
So you were born in the evening.
Vati said.
I've always found the traditional name so descriptive.
What a meaningless comment, Dusk thought. Why do Homeilers feel the need to speak when there is nothing to say?
I imagine this is exactly what happens in my husband's head. He's just like this. Like, why do you have to speak so much, man? Only speak when I need to. Oh, this makes him very attractive.
I like both of these characters very much. They're both so charismatic in their own way.
Oh no, Bimo! If Pent was a miscarriage, would the next kid be Repent? Stop it, Bimo. Cease, man.
He moved on to the next nest, checking the 2 drowsy birds inside, then inspecting their droppings. They responded to his presence with happiness. An AVR raised around humans, particularly one that had lent its talent to a person at an early age, would always see people as part of their flock. These birds were not his companions, like Sock and Cokerly, but they were still special to him.
Aww. No insects in the blankets.
Vati said, sticking her head up out of the trapdoor behind him, her own AVR on her shoulders.
I think you say the cups.
Oh, okay. The cups.
I'll get to those in a moment. So these are your breeding pairs, are they?
Obviously they were, so he didn't need to reply. Obviously they were, so he didn't need to reply. She
Yeah.
watched him check them. He felt her eyes on him. Finally, he spoke. Why did your company ignore the advice we gave you? Coming here was a disaster.
Yes.
He turned to her.
Yes. This whole expedition will likely be a disaster that takes us a step closer to our goal.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Ask a question, Dusk. Come on. What is your goal? But I guess maybe he knows because of the meeting, etc.
He checked Sisisru next, working by the light of the now rising moon. Foolish. Vati folded her arms before her on the roof of the building, torso still disappearing into the lit square of the trapdoor below. Do you think that our ancestors learned to wayfind on the oceans without experiencing a... Wait, no, that's you.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. Do you think that our ancestors learned to wayfind on the oceans without experiencing a few disasters along the way? Or what of the first trappers? You have knowledge passed down for generations, knowledge learned through trial and error. If the first trappers had considered it too foolish to explore, where would you be? Good point.
Strong point, yes. They were single men, well-trained, not a ship full of clerks and dock workers.
The world is changing, 6th of Dusk.
She said softly.
No, I don't speak softly. No, I'll go back. I'll do it again.
No, it literally says she said so. Okay.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to redo it. The world is changing, 6th of Dusk. The people of the mainland grow hungry for AVR companions. Things once restricted to the very wealthy are within the reach of ordinary people. We've learned so much, yet the AVR are still an enigma. Why don't chicks raised on the home isles bestow talents? Why?
Foolish arguments, Dusk said, putting Sisisru back into her nest. I do not wish to hear them again.
And the ones above? What of their technology? The wonders they produce?
He hesitated. Then he took out a pair of thick gloves and gestured toward her AVR. Okay, so they cannot raise AVRs on the main land, the main place, because then they're not magical, which suggests to me that these islands are in fact magical in nature and bestows the power on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me one moment. I'm going to open up a new poll for everyone in the chat. It looks like the old one at 58 to 42, should Kite voice every Kolos line in the Well of Ascension, is a yes. Excellent. But I want to start a new poll. Ask a question. Is 6th of the Dusk a ... And then you will be able to put Ranger or Druid. Let me know what you think. I could go either way right now.
I feel Ranger, man. He ranges, bruh.
He's a hunk.
He's a hunk.
Yes, he is, Primo. Ranger with Beast Companion. My lack of D&D knowledge is hurting me.
Just the
No
the
brain.
wording. Just go with the wording. Mine's also hurting me, but it feels Ranger, man.
He hesitated, then he took out a pair of thick gloves and gestured toward her AVR. Vati looked at the white and green AVR, then made a comforting clicking sound and took her in two hands. The bird suffered it with a few annoyed half-bites at Vati's fingers. But he doesn't have a bow. And yes, Bimo, we should change that. We should definitely change that. With a Mistborn themed one-shot, eventually.
At some point.
Yes. Oh no, I've lost my place.
Dusk carefully took the bird in gloved hands.
Bite at Vati's fingers. Dusk carefully took the bird in his gloved hands. For him, those bites would not be as timid, and undid Vati's bandage. Then he cleaned the wound, much to the bird's protests, and carefully placed a new bandage. From there, he wrapped the bird's wings around its body with another bandage not too tight, lest the creature be unable to breathe. She didn't like it, obviously, but flying would hurt that wing more with the fracture. She'd eventually be able to bite off the bandage, but for now, she'd get a chance to heal. Once done, he placed her with his other AVR, who made quiet, friendly chirps, calming the flustered bird.
Aw, these things are so cool!
They are. I like birds. Kite, if you had a pet bird, what type of bird would you have?
Aww. Probably one of those, I think it's like a ringneck, those green parrots. Yeah.
My mom has one of those, but he's blue.
Oh, yeah, one of those, yeah. That's what I'd do, because my aunt had a African grey, and they're great, but they can also be assholes. So, and I've seen a lot more friendly ring neck ones.
Nice. I had the ringnecks as a kid. I had cockatiels and I had lovebirds as a kid. I prefer cockatiels over lovebirds personally.
I had cockatiels as well.
Playful. Nice.
They were African greys. You had African greys, Bima. I had cockatiels, and they had babies.
I did know that. I've seen the video where he teaches with it on his shoulder. He teaches it to use the force. I know my grandfather raised quail in his backyard. So.
Oh, poor eggs. Whale's eggs.
I mean, he didn't raise them for eggs. He raised them like quail.
My
Yeah.
grandparents had African greys, and I spent months on end with them at a time in my life. Were they nice? Because my aunt's parrot was my friend when he was young, but then he just began to hate women. He still hates women. Like he's just the
Wow.
most misogynistic bird ever. He loves men, but when it comes to girls, he'll just look at you funny and then bite you.
Vati seemed content to let her bird remain there for the time, though she watched the entire process with interest. You may sleep in my safe camp tonight, Dusk said, turning back to her.
And then what? You turn me out into the jungle to die?
You did well on your way here, he said grudgingly. She was not a trapper. A scholar should not have been able to do what she did. You will probably survive.
I got lucky. I'd never make it across the entire island.
Dusk paused. Across the island?
To the main company camp.
There are more of you?
Of course, you didn't think...
What happened? Now who was the fool? He thought to himself. You should have asked this first. Talking. He had never been good with it.
You see, ask questions. I'm going to make Gordon read this story.
She shied away from him, eyes widening. Did he look dangerous? Perhaps he had barked the last question forcefully. No matter. She spoke, so he got what he needed.
We set up camp on the far beach. We have 2 iron hulls armed with cannons watching the waters. Those can take on even a deep walker if they have to. 200 soldiers, half that number in scientists and merchants. We're determined to find out, once and for all, why the aviar must be born on one of the Pantheon Islands to be able to bestow talents. Jesus. It's a bit invasive, but okay.
Safety in numbers, I suppose. One would hope. I think you continue on.
Mm-hmm. One team came down this direction to scout sites to place another fortress. The company is determined to hold Pachi against other interests. I thought the smaller expedition a bad idea, but had my own reasons for wanting to circle the island. So I went along, and then the deep walker.
She looked sick. Dusk had almost stopped listening. 200 soldiers? Crawling across Pachi like ants on a fallen piece of fruit. Unbearable. He thought of the quiet jungle broken by the sounds of their raucous voices. The sound of humans yelling at each other, clanging on metal, stomping about like a city. A flurry of dark feathers announced Suck coming up from below and landing on the lip of the trapdoor beside Vati. The black-plumed bird limped across the roof toward Dusk, stretching her wings, showing off the scars on her left. Flying even a dozen of feet was a chore for her. Dusk reached... Aw, poor bird. Dusk reached down to scratch her neck. It was happening. An invasion. He had to find a way to stop it. Somehow.
I'm sorry, Dusk. The trappers are fascinating to me. I've read of your ways, and I respect them. But this was going to happen someday. It's inevitable. The islands will be tamed. The aviar are too valuable to leave in the hands of a couple hundred eccentric woodsmen.
Eccentric woodsmen?
Mm.
Look, if it works, don't break it.
Mm.
What makes you think you can do what they Okay. No. This is fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. This is so Tarzan. My goodness.
Yeah. Okay, so is Dusk going to enlist Vati into helping him stop them? Is she going to have a change of heart? Is he going to have a reluctant change of heart? What do you think?
I would think that. Oh, I don't know if it's inevitable. Yeah, he's going to try. I don't know. I think it could go either way. Depends on whether Brandon Sanderson wants us to be sad or not.
Hmm. The chiefs.
Hmm.
It's your
Where,
line.
where are we?
Bottom of
The chief-
508.
All 20 chiefs in a council agreed to this plan. I was there. If the Ilican did not secure these islands and the Aviar, someone else will.
Dusk stared out into the night. Go and make certain there are no insects in the cups below.
But
Go, he said, and make certain there are no insects in the cups below. The woman sighed softly, but okay, maybe I was a bit harsh in my delivery, but damn it, I think I'm him angry. Anyway, the woman sighed softly but retreated into the room, leaving him with his aviar. He continued to scratch Sock on the neck, seeking comfort in the familiar motion and in her presence. Dared he hope that the shadows would prove too deadly for the company and its Ironhold ships? Vati seemed confident. She did not tell me why she joined the scouting group. She had seen a shadow, witnessed it destroying her team, but had still managed the presence of mind to find his camp. She was a strong woman. He would need to remember that. She was also a company type, as removed from his experience as a person could get. Soldiers, craftsmen, even chiefs he could understand, but these soft-spoken scribes who had quietly conquered the world with a sword of commerce, they baffled him. Father, what do I do? Pachi gave no reply beyond the normal sounds of night. Creatures moving, hunting, rustling. At night, the aviar slept, and that gave opportunity to the most dangerous of the island's predators. In the distance, a nightmare called, its horrid screech echoing through the trees. Sock spread her wings, leaning down, head darting back and forth. The sound always made her tremble. It did the same to Dusk. He sighed and rose, placing Sock on his shoulder. He turned and almost stumbled as he saw his corpse at his feet. Oh no! In his own safe house? Oh no! He came alert immediately. What was it? Vines in the tree branches? A spider dropping quietly from above? There wasn't supposed to be anything in his safe camp that could kill him. Sock screeched as if in pain. Oh no, what's happening? What is she doing? Is this Vati?
Uh-oh.
Nearby, his other aviar cried out as well, a cacophony of squawks, screeches, chirps. No, it wasn't just them. All around, echoing in the distance from both near and far, wild aviar squawked. Oh, wait, maybe this is Father commenting, because he did just essentially pray to Father for guidance.
That his father's going to just kill you.
They rustled in their branches, a sound like a powerful wind blowing through the trees. Dusk spun about, holding his hands to his ears, eyes wide as corpses appeared around him. They piled high, one atop another, some bloated, some bloody, some skeletal, haunting him, dozens upon dozens. He dropped to his knees, yelling. That put him eye to eye with one of his corpses, only this one was not quite dead. Blood dripped from its lips as it tried to speak, mouthing words that Dusk did not understand. It vanished. They all did. Every last one. He spun about, wild, but saw no bodies. The sounds of the aviar quieted, and his flock settled back into their nests. Dusk breathed in and out, deeply, heart racing. He felt tense, as if at any moment a shadow would explode from the blackness around his camp and consume him. He anticipated it, felt it coming. He wanted to run somewhere. What had that been?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like you're right that it was the answer. It was like listen, it's a warning. Like, if you let this continue, this is what happens. It's just death. And the island itself is like, ah! So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this was definitely a vision from Father.
Mm-hmm.
What had that been? In all of his years with Sock, he had never seen anything like it. What could have upset all of the aviar at once? Was it the nightmaw he had heard? Don't be foolish. This was different. Different from anything you've seen. Different from anything that has been seen on Pachi. But what? What had changed? What do you think had changed?
Yeah, hello. What has not happened ever?
Sock had not settled down like the others. She stared northward, toward where Vati had said the main camp of invaders was setting up. Dusk stood then, clambered down into the room below, Sock on his shoulder. What are your people doing? Vati spun at his harsh tone. She'd been looking out of the window northward.
I don't...
He took her by the front of her vest, pulling her toward him in a two-fisted grip, meeting her eyes from only a few inches away. What are your people doing? Her eyes widened, and he could feel her tremble in his grip, though she set her jaw and held his gaze. Scribes were not supposed to have grit like this. He had seen them scribbling away in their windowless rooms. Dusk tightened his grip on her vest, pulling the fabric so it dug into her skin, and found himself growling softly.
Release me, and we will speak.
Bah! He said, letting go. She dropped a few inches, hitting the floor with a thump. He hadn't realized he'd lifted her off the ground.
You violent brute!
He's freaking out. He just had a scary vision. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would Dusk's breath smell?
Oh yeah, 11. Unless he's got things to chew on, like a certain citrusy leaf or something.
Yeah. She backed away, putting as much space between them as the room would allow. He stalked to the window, looking through the mesh screen at the night. His corpse dropped from the roof above, hitting the ground below. He jumped back, worried that it was happening again. It didn't. Not the same way as before. However, when he turned back into the room, his corpse lay in the corner, bloody lips parted, eyes staring sightlessly. The danger, whatever it was, had not passed. Vati had sat down on the floor, holding her head trembling. Had he frightened her that soundly? She did look tired, exhausted. She wrapped her arms around herself, and when she looked at him, there was a cast to her eyes that hadn't been there before, as if she were regarding a wild animal let off its chain. That seemed fitting.
What do you know of the ones above?
She asked him. They live in the stars.
We at the company have been meeting with them. We don't understand their ways. They look like us. At times they talk like us. But they have rules, laws that they won't explain. They refuse to sell us their marvels. But in a like manner, they seem forbidden from taking things from us, even in trade. They promise it someday when we are more advanced. It's like they think we are children.
The Prime Directive.
Mm-hmm.
And this screams Cosmere to me.
Yes, thank you, Gladys. Keep it quiet.
Yes, no one say anything, but
all of you, shut up.
Yeah, but look, okay, we know the Cosmere is like the universe. We know that there are different planets. We know there are different systems. We know Hoyd goes from one place. No spoilers, anyone. Goes from story to story. It's not unreasonable to think others could too.
Mm. I like not knowing. Thank you, chat.
Why should we care? If they leave us alone, we will be better for it.
You haven't seen the things they can do,
she said softly, getting a distant look in her eyes.
We have barely worked out how to create ships that can sail on their own against the wind. But the ones above, they can sail the skies, sail the stars themselves. They know so much, and they won't tell us any of it.
Sail the stars themselves?
They're aliens!
Ones Above is a cool name for aliens. I don't think I've heard a similar term for aliens before, quite like that. I like it. She shook her head, reaching into the pocket of her skirt.
They're after something, Dusk. What interest do we hold for them? From what I've heard them say, there are many other worlds like ours. Yay! With cultures that cannot sail the stars. We are not unique, yet the ones above came back here time and time again. They do want something. You can see it in their eyes. Was that my American accent, Kitty? Was that? When? Yeah, I don't know.
Wait, I do not
When
know.
I told people to keep quiet. Maybe that's why.
One's above. Aliens.
Oh,
What
aliens.
is...
They're aliens. Yes, that was American.
What is that? Dusk asked, nodding to the thing she took from her pocket. Actually, before we go further, it is so interesting, her interest in technology and what they have to learn. Because I had almost forgotten about what Dusk had in the beginning when he was just getting to the island. He had, what was it, the compass and the thing that lets him see beneath the water, and he had some very specific thoughts and belief statements about the improving technology and how you can't stop progress, so to speak. And then this is like that magnified 100-fold.
Yeah,
right?
it's like this is just helping. Those things were just helping him continue the same sort of life. This sort of progress ruins. It changes life too much.
Yeah, we can't give cavemen TV and so on.
Don't give cavemen TikTok. Basically.
What is that? Dusk asked, nodding to the thing she took from her pocket. It rested in her palm like the shell of a clam, but had a mirror-like face on the top.
It's a machine, like a clock, only it never needs to be wound, and it shows things. It's TikTok!
She has a phone? What things?
Well, it translates languages, ours into that of the ones above. It also shows the locations of AVR.
Ooh, what do the ones above want with the AVR?
He wants their magics.
What?
It's like a map. It points the way to AVR.
That's how you found my camp, Dusk said, stepping toward her.
Yes.
She rubbed her thumb across the machine's surface.
It's touchscreen. Yeah. We aren't supposed to have this. It was the possession of an emissary sent to work with us. He choked while eating a few months back. They can die, it appears, even of mundane causes. That changed how I view them. His kind have asked after his machines, and we will have to return them soon. But this one tells us what they are after, the AVR. The ones above are always fascinated with them. I think they want to find a way to trade for the birds, a way their laws will allow. They hint that we might not be safe, that not everyone above follows their laws. This is all great. Oh, this is so cool. The way it's all encompassing. Jeez.
Now it's seeming more like Star Trek a little bit, but like from the not Star Trek POV. But why did the AVR react like they did just now? Dusk said, turning back to the window. Why did I see what I saw? What I'm still seeing to an extent. His corpse was there, wherever he looked, slumped by a tree outside, in the corner of the room, hanging out of the trapdoor in the roof. Sloppy. He should have closed that. Sock had pulled into his hair like she did when a predator was near.
There is a second machine.
Where? He demanded.
On our ship.
The direction the AVR had looked.
The second machine is much larger. This one in my hands has limited range. The larger one can can create an enormous map, one of an entire island, then write out a paper with a copy of that map. The map will include a dot marking every AVR.
And
And we were going to engage the machine tonight.
she said,
It takes hours to prepare, like an oven growing hot, before it's ready. The schedule was to turn it on tonight, just after sunset, so we could use it in the morning.
the others, they'd use it without you? She grimaced.
Happily, Captain Easter probably did a dance when I didn't return from scouting. He's been worried I would take control of this expedition, but the machine isn't harmful. It merely locates AVR. Oh, just locating the things that are valuable. That's not harmful at all. Come on, you're smarter than
No.
that, love.
And what's the plan? Are you going to take 5, 10, 100, all of them?
Why do you need to know where all of them are? And now the company is trying to find them all. So, yeah, it's not just the ones above that are a threat right now.
What are the odds that the machine has been turned on? What are the odds that the machine was activated and that's what triggered the freak out?
She does say it was supposed to be turned on in the, or they're supposed to turn it on. That is it. It's stuck. It's charging up. So it makes sense that that's what actually caused this, because they just turned it on as soon as the sun went down. It's not that it's done it already, like that it's mapped everything, but it's charging up. It is on.
Did it do that before? He demanded, waving toward the night. When you last used it, did it draw the attention of all the AVR? Discomfort them?
Well, no. But the moment of discomfort has passed, hasn't it? I'm sure it's nothing. Oh, come on!
Stupid, Vati!
Yeah, come on.
Darn scientists didn't... Oh, gosh, what's the Jurassic Park quote? You were so busy wondering whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think whether or not you should.
You should. Mm-hmm.
Something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Sock quivered on his shoulder. Dusk saw death all around him. The moment they had engaged that machine, the corpses had piled up. If they used it again, the results would be horrible. Dusk knew it. He could feel it. We're going to stop them.
What? Tonight?
Yes, Dusk said, walking to a small hidden cabinet in the wall. He pulled it open and began to pick through the supplies inside. A second lantern, extra oil.
That's insane. Nobody travels the islands at night.
I've done it once before, with my uncle. His uncle had died on that trip. Oh, no.
Oops, yeah, that's not a good thing, but you know what? I can see how desperate he is.
Yeah, this is a serious thing.
Yeah. You can't be serious, Dusk. The Nightmares are out. I've heard them.
Nightmares track minds, Dusk said, stuffing supplies into his pack. They are almost completely deaf and close to blind. If we move quickly and cut across the center of the island, we can be to your camp by morning. We can stop them from using the machine again.
But why would we want to?
That is an excellent question for her to ask, and I really hope that Dusk either intends to convince her of why they shouldn't want to, or expect a betrayal from her of some kind.
Yeah, I think he would. He doesn't trust her as much. I mean, he trusts that what she's telling him is true, definitely, because it all makes sense. But it's like, and also, I don't think he finds her that formidable that it's like, oh well, if she disagrees, it's gonna it will stop him. He's gonna go anyway, whether she's with him or not.
Right.
But why would we want to?
He shouldered the pack. Because if we don't, it will destroy the island. She frowned at him, cocking her head.
You can't know that. Why do you think you know that? Oh.
The hubris.
Hmm.
Your AVR will have to remain here with that wound, he said, ignoring the question. She would not be able to fly away if something happened to us. The same argument could be made for Sock, but he would not be without the bird. I will return her to you after we have stopped the machine. Come. He walked to the floor hatch and pulled it open. Vati rose but pressed back against the wall.
I'm staying here.
Oh, no, I lost my place. The people of your company won't believe me. You will have to tell them to stop. You are coming.
Okay, so it
But-
does. That makes sense. That's why he does need her to come along.
Yeah. So that also means he's going to have to work really, really hard to convince her that he's right.
Mm-hmm. And keep her alive.
Yeah. Vati licked her lips in what seemed to be a nervous habit. She glanced to the sides, looking for escape, then back at him. Right then, Dusk noticed his corpse hanging from the pegs in the tree beneath him. He jumped.
What was that?
Nothing.
You keep glancing to the sides. What do you think you see, Dusk?
We're going, now.
You've been alone on the island for a long time.
She said, obviously trying to make her voice soothing. Oh, she thinks she's talking to a madman.
Mm-hmm. You're upset about our arrival. You aren't thinking clearly. I understand.
I'm liking her less and less. Dusk drew in a deep breath. Sock, show her. The bird launched from his shoulder, flapping across the room, landing on Vati. She turned to the bird, frowning. Then she gasped, falling to her knees. Vati huddled back against the wall, eyes darting from side to side, mouth working, but no words coming out. Dusk left her to it for a short time, then raised his arm. Sock returned to him on black wings, dropping a single dark feather to the floor. She settled in again on his shoulder. That much flying was difficult for her.
Oh, poor baby. What was that?
Vati demanded. Come, Dusk said, taking his pack and climbing down out of the room. Vati scrambled to the open hatch.
No, tell me. What was that?
You saw your corpse.
All about me. Everywhere I looked.
Sock grants that talent.
There is no such talent. I just experienced it, but there is no such talent. Cool.
Well, no, but okay, so here I was thinking that was the point of the birds and why they were valuable to people.
It seems
So-
like the birds have different talents.
I suppose. So this is essentially a unique talent to Dusk.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Sixth.
to
Well, yeah, Sock, but
Mhm.
how? Well, now I kind of want to know what benefits others get from their birds and how they
Mhm.
utilize these other talents to navigate
Yeah.
the forests and the
Mhm.
jungles
Yeah.
in the island. Dusk looked up at her halfway down the pegs. You have seen your death. That is what will happen if your friends use their machine. Death. All of us. The AVR, everyone living here. I do not know why, but I know that it will come.
You've discovered a new AVR. How? When?
Hand me the lantern. Looking numb, she obeyed, handing it down. He put it into his teeth and descended the pegs to the ground. Then he raised the lantern high, looking down the slope. The inky jungle at night, like the depths of the ocean. He shivered, then whistled. Cokerlee fluttered down from above, landing on his other shoulder. He would hide their minds. And with that, they had a chance. It would still not be easy. The things of the jungle relied upon mind sense, but many could still hunt by scent or other senses. Oh, it's like burning, what was it, copper?
Yeah. You've got a little bit of copper cloud. But then there would still be there are still monsters that use other senses. Makes sense. But the worst, I suppose, are the ones that use mind sense.
And we know that there are two metals that essentially let you see things that aren't there.
Mhm.
Gold and what was it? Malatium?
What?
Um,
Atium as well.
well, that's true.
They aren't the things aren't there yet. They're in the future.
Yeah. Interesting. Vati scrambled down the pegs behind him, her pack over her shoulder, the strange tube peeking out.
I've lost my place now.
Well, atium lets you see forward in time, but isn't it malatium that is the 11th metal, the one that lets you see other people's shadows? Past shadows?
Possible shadows, as in who they could have been.
Yeah. But to be clear, I do see how atium also lets you see things that aren't there. But anyway, doesn't matter.
You have 2 AVR. You use them both at once?
My uncle had 3.
How is that even possible?
They like trappers. So many questions. Could she not think about what the answers might be before asking?
Listen,
Still
we
like
want
'em.
confirmation, okay? I like questions because we need confirmation, okay?
Yeah.
We're actually going to do this. The jungle at night. I should stay. I should refuse.
You've seen your death if you do.
I've seen what you claim is my death. A new AVR. It has been centuries.
Though her voice still sounded reluctant, she walked after him as he strode down the slope and past his traps, entering the jungle again. His corpse sat at the base of a tree. That made him immediately look for what could kill him here. But Sock's senses seemed to be off. The island's impending death was so overpowering, it seemed to be smothering smaller dangers. He might not be able to rely upon her visions until the machine was destroyed.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's just impending doom no matter what. It's everywhere. There's nothing specific. Everything is going to kill you. Everything is death.
Yeah.
And if
stakes
that's
are
happening,
raised.
yeah, and if that's happening to Sock's senses, what is happening to all the other AVR and their senses and their abilities?
Chaos. The thick jungle canopy swallowed them, hot, even at night. The ocean breezes didn't reach this far inland. That left the air feeling stagnant, and it dripped with the scents of the jungle. Fungus, rotting leaves, the perfumes of flowers. The accompaniment to those scents was the sound of an island coming alive, a constant crinkling in the underbrush, like the sound of maggots writhing on a pile of dry leaves.
Thanks.
The lantern's light did not seem to extend as far as it should. Vati pulled up close behind him.
Why did you do this before? The other time you went out at night?
More questions, but sounds, fortunately, were not too dangerous. I was wounded. We had to get from one safe camp to the other to recover my uncle's store of anti-venom. Because Dusk, hands trembling, had dropped the other flask. Oh.
Okay. You survived it? Well, obviously you did. I mean, I'm surprised is all.
She seemed to be talking to fill the air.
Yeah, we do that. They could be watching us.
She said, looking into the darkness.
Nightmares.
They are not.
How can you know? Anything could be out there in that darkness.
If the Nightmares had seen us, we'd be dead. That is how I know. He shook his head, sliding out his machete and cutting away a few branches before them. Any could hold death ants skittering across their leaves. In the dark, it would be difficult to spot them, and so brushing against foliage seemed a poor decision. We won't be able to avoid it, he thought, leading the way down through a gully thick with mud. He had to step on stones to keep from sinking in. Vati followed with remarkable dexterity. We have to go quickly. I can't cut down every branch in our way. He hopped off a stone and onto the bank of the gully, and there passed his corpse, sinking into the mud. Nearby, he spotted a second corpse, so translucent it was nearly invisible. He raised his lantern, hoping it wasn't happening again. Others did not appear, just these two, and the very faint image. Yes, that was a sinkhole there. Sock chirped softly, and he fished in his pocket for a seed to give her. She had figured out how to send him help. The fainter images were immediate dangers. He would have to watch for those. Smart bird.
Mm-hmm. She's got like full on some sort of atium kind of sense, but it's only with danger. It's cool. Man, Sanderson's magic's awesome.
So awesome. Thank you, he whispered to her.
That bird of yours.
Vati said, speaking softly in the gloom of night.
Are there others?
They climbed out of the gully, continuing on, crossing a krell trail in the night. He stopped them just before they wandered into a patch of death ants. Vati looked at the trail of tiny yellow insects moving in a straight line.
Dusk?
She asked as they rounded the ants.
Are there others? Why haven't you brought any chicks to market?
I do not have any chicks.
So you found only the one?
Questions, buzzing around him like flies. Don't be foolish, he told himself, shoving down his annoyance. You would ask the same if you saw someone with a new AVR. He had tried to keep Sokka secret for years. He hadn't even brought her with him when he left the island. But with her hurt wing, he hadn't wanted to abandon her. Deep down, he'd known he couldn't keep his secret forever. There are many like her, but only she has a talent to bestow. Vati stopped. Interesting.
Okay.
Vati stopped in place as he continued to cut them a path. He turned back, looking at her alone on the new trail. He had given her the lantern to hold.
That's a mainlander bird,
she said. She held up the light.
I knew it was when I first saw it, and I assumed it wasn't an AVR because the mainlander birds can't bestow talents.
Interesting.
Okay. So, they can, and she's just special?
Special bird? Dusk turned back and continued cutting.
You brought a mainlander chick to the Pantheon, and it gained a talent.
With a hack, he brought down a branch, then continued on. Again, she had not asked a question, so he needed not answer. Vati hurried to keep up, the glow of the lantern tossing his shadow before him as she stepped up behind.
So, wait. Surely someone else has tried it before. Surely.
He did not know.
But why would they?
She continued quietly as if to herself.
The AVR are special. Everyone knows the separate breeds and what they do. Why assume that a fish would learn to breathe air if raised on land? Why assume a non-AVR would become one if raised on Pachi?
They continued through the night. Dusk led them around many dangers, though he found that he needed to rely greatly upon Sock's help. Do not follow that stream which has your corpse bobbing in its waters. Do not touch that tree. The bark is poisonous with rot. Turn from that path. Your corpse shows a death ant bite. Imagine going through a jungle trying to touch not a single insect.
Yeah, and everything is just a death this, a death that. There's death vines basically that will trap you, and then all these kind of things. So it's just like, oh, it's like the anxiety would kill me itself. So, I'd just have a heart attack. Okay, well, you know what? It's just not.
Sock did not speak to him, but each message was clear. When he stopped to let Vati drink from her canteen, he held Sock and found her trembling. She did not peck at him, as was usual when he enclosed her in his hands. They stood in a small clearing, pure dark all around them, the sky shrouded in clouds. He heard distant rainfall on the trees, not uncommon here. Night moths screeched, one then another. They only did that when they had made a kill or when they were seeking to frighten prey. Often, Krell herds slept near aviar roosts. Frighten away the birds, and you could sense the Krell. Vati had taken out her tube, not a scroll case, and not something scholarly at all, considering the way she held it as she poured something into its end. Once done, she raised it like one would a weapon. Beneath her feet, Dusk's body lay mangled. Did she just put gunpowder in a gun?
Yeah, what?
Cool.
Not if she's not on our side.
True. Blunderbuss.
I don't know what that is, sorry. I'm sure it is.
Beneath her feet, Dusk's body lay mangled. Gee, I wonder what happened in that potential future. He did not ask after Vati's weapon, not even as she took some kind of short, slender spear and fitted it into the top end. No weapon could penetrate the thick skin of a night maw. You either avoided them or you died. Well, do you know about blunderbusses? My money's on the blunderbuss.
Okay.
Although if it's an early prototype, you're going to have to aim very carefully and hope to not miss.
Yeah, it's
Cokerly
worth a try. It's you avoid or die. Yeah, we're gonna try and avoid them, but let's try not die.
Cokerly fluttered down to his shoulder, chirping away. He seemed confused by the darkness. Why were they out like this, at night, when birds normally made no noise? We must keep moving, Dusk said, placing Sock on his other shoulder and taking out his machete.
You realize that your bird changes everything.
Vati said, quietly joining him, shouldering her pack and carrying her tube in the other hand.
There will be a new kind of aviar.
Dusk whispered, stepping over. Oh, yep. Also, before I get to that, your very first Cosmere gun. How fun! There will be a new kind of aviar, Dusk whispered, stepping over his corpse.
That's the least of it, Dusk. That's the least of it. Dusk, we assume the chicks raised away from these islands did not develop their abilities because they were not around others to train them. We assume that their abilities were innate, like our ability to speak. It's inborn, but we require help from others to develop it.
That can still be true. Other species, such as Sock, can merely be trained to speak.
And your bird? Was it trained by others?
Perhaps. He did not say what he really thought. It was a thing of trappers, he noted. It was a thing of trappers. He noted a corpse on the ground before them. It was not his. He held up a hand immediately, stilling Vati as she continued on to ask another question. What was this? The meat had been picked off much of the skeleton, and the clothing lay strewn about, ripped open by animals that feasted. Small fungus-like plants had sprouted around the ground near it, tiny red tendrils reaching up to enclose parts of the skeleton. He looked up at the great tree, at the foot of which rested the corpse. The flowers were not in bloom. Dusk released his breath.
What is it? Death ants?
No. Pachi's finger. She frowned.
Is that some kind of curse?
It is a name, Dusk said, stepping forward carefully to inspect the corpse. Machete, boots, rugged gear. One of his colleagues had fallen.
Shit out of me.
I suppose you need to get that.
Yeah, I'll get that. It scared me.
Okay. So, well, while she does that, I will take this brief intermission to say that I've been talking to Gray, and at some point, Kitty Gray and I will do a Well of Ascension casting to do more of the new characters from Well of Ascension at some point. And Bimo and I have been talking, and at some point, Kite, Bimo, and I will probably do a casting for some of the Way of Kings once we get much farther into that. And then I was actually going to PM you, Libralita, at some point and see if you wanted to join Kita and I for a casting, potentially, for the Emperor's Soul and Sixth of the Dusk. And then if we happen to make it to Shadows of Silence before that point, we can probably throw that one in as well. So let me know if you're interested in being a part of that, Libralita. Yay, thank you. I do enjoy the casting. Naturally, we will continue with the format of current cast and timeless cast. And I have a lot of ideas in mind for the Emperor's Soul that I'm very excited to share at some point. So lots of exciting plans for the channel.
Right?
And yeah.
I'm back.
Great. Now it's my turn to be right back while you entertain the folks.
Well,
To be clear,
what I was
that
gonna-
was FOLKS, not the other one. So, folks.
Oh, no, just the actual use of folks. Oh, sorry. Just yeeted the microphone. The casting is fun, but I'm kind of what do you call it? I'm kind of handicapped when it comes to that because, like, the timeless ones, I don't really know many actors. I don't know these things. I have to actually have to go and look and be like, okay, let's look at all these actors. What do they look like? Oh, I have to go and look at a couple movies and be like, yeah, I'm just not a theater child, so I don't know actors. My Hollywood, yeah, exactly, Liberty said. My Hollywood knowledge is very limited. Exactly. But you know what? You can still do it. Just, yeah. If Kitsy struggles as well, then yeah. No, struggle with me. You go and basically, as well, you go like on IMDb, basically, and you like just look around and you're like, oh, this guy. And then you, then what I do is, okay, I get reminded of where I've seen a certain actor in a movie, and then I'm like, that would work. And that's how it goes. It's just there's more steps involved for us. With Dorcas, he just has it in his mind already.
And yes, I do. Maybe. But hey, it's all in good fun. It's nothing like to take so seriously. So yay. I'll be looking forward to that. Okay, I have returned. So let's take it back just a little bit, I think. Pachi's fingers. Pachi's finger, she frowned.
Is that some kind of curse?
It is a name, Dusk said, stepping forward carefully to inspect the corpse. Machete, boots, rugged gear. One of his colleagues had fallen. He thought he recognized the man from the clothing, an older trapper named First of the Sky.
The name of a person?
Vati asked, peeking over his shoulder. I do have fun Well of Ascension castings that I'm excited to say in the chat when that comes around. Excellent. Excellent. The name of a tree, Dusk said, poking at the corpse's clothing, careful of insects that might be lurking inside. Raise the lamp.
I've never heard of that tree,
she said skeptically. They are only on Pachi.
I've read a lot about the flora on these islands.
Here you are a child. Light. She sighed, raising it for him. He used a stick to prod at pockets on the ripped clothing. This man had been killed by a pack of Tuskrun, larger predators, almost as large as a man, that prowled mostly by day. Their movement patterns were predictable unless one happened across one of Pachi's fingers in bloom. There. He found a small book in the man's pocket. Dusk raised it, then backed away. Vati peered over his shoulder. Homeilers stood so close to each other. Did she need to stand right by his elbow? Well, look, she's scared. He checked the first pages, finding a list of dates. Yes, judging by the last date written down, this man was only a few days dead. The pages after that detailed the locations of Sky's safe camps, along with explanations of the traps guarding each one. The last page contained the farewell. I am first of the Sky, taken by Pachi at last. I have a brother on Suluko. Care for them, rival.
So
Care
that's
for
what you
them,
do.
rival.
You have this little booklet basically that has all the information, and it's like, well, I'm done. You can loot me. There's my camps, and please tell my brother. See ya.
Take care of my family. It's such a strange relationship. Like they would rather kill each other when they bump into each other, but they don't, and they rather let the island take care of that. And yet they will write notes to be found by these rivals asking to care for their family.
Well, he says care for them. I think it's care for the birds because they've got their own nests.
Interesting. I thought this was in reference to the brother. I have a brother on Suluko. Oh, yeah. No, a brother, but it's them. Okay. Yep. Apparently.
Yeah, you are. No, Gray has some good as well.
Yeah, Gray has some excellent casting, intuition, and knowledge. Few words were good. Dusk carried a book like this himself, and he had said even less on his last page.
He wants you to care for his family?
Don't be stupid, Dusk said, tucking the book away. His birds. See, now I feel stupid, and you should feel smart.
I'm so smart.
Wonderful.
That's sweet. I'd always heard that trappers were incredibly territorial.
We are, he said, noting how she said it. Again, her tone made it seem as if she considered trappers to be like animals. But our birds might die without care. They are accustomed to humans. Better to give them to a rival than to let them die.
Even if that rival is the one who killed you? The traps you set, the ways you try to interfere with one another.
It is our way.
Yeah, so trappers trap each other. That's what you're trapping. You're not trapping birds. You're not doing that. No, you trap each other. It's the way that things are. Okay. So yeah, just understand. The traps that you set, the ways you try to interfere with one another. And he goes,
it is our way.
That's an awful excuse,
she said, looking up at the tree. She was right. The tree was massive with drooping fronds. At the end of each one was a large closed blossom, as long as two hands put together.
You don't seem worried, though the plant seems to have killed that man.
These are only dangerous when they bloom.
Spores?
No. He picked up the fallen machete, but left the rest of Sky's things alone. Let Pachi claim him. Father did so like to murder his children. Dusk continued onward, leading Vati, ignoring his corpse draped across a log.
Dusk?
Vati asked, raising the lantern and hurrying to him.
If not spores, then how does the tree kill?
So many questions.
My life is about questions. And about answers. If my people are going to work on this island... Oh,
he hacked at some plants with the machete.
It is going to happen. I'm sorry, Dusk. You can't stop the world from changing. Perhaps my expedition will be defeated, but others will come.
Because of the ones above.
They may spur it. Truly, when we finally convince them we are developed enough to be traded with, we will sail the stars as they do. But change will happen even without them. The world is progressing. One man cannot slow it, no matter how determined he is. I feel like she's right. It's so sad, though.
Yeah, she's not wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also displaying the dangerous characteristics of progress gone too far or progress without wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I really want for these two is for him to be able to accept that change happens, but to pass on to her some wisdom on the topic.
Yeah, it is a tragedy. Progress is a tragedy. Oh,
Yeah.
things will not stay the same. But he's going to still. I don't know. Does that mean that we must just give up?
He stopped in the path. You cannot stop the tides from changing, Dusk, no matter how determined you are. His mother's words, some of the last he remembered from her. Dusk continued on his way. Vati followed. He would need her, though a treacherous piece of him whispered that she would be easy to end. With her would go her questions, and more importantly, her answers, the ones he suspected she was very close to discovering. You cannot change it. He could not. He hated that it was so. He wanted so badly to protect this island, as his kind had done for centuries. He worked this jungle. He loved its birds, was fond of its scents and sounds, despite all else. How he wished he could prove to Pachi that he and the others were worthy of these shores. Perhaps then. Bah! Well, killing this woman would not provide any real protection for the island. Besides, had he sunk so low that he would murder a helpless scribe in cold blood? He would not even do that to another trapper unless they approached his camp and did not retreat. The blossoms can think, he found himself saying as he turned them away from a mound that showed the Tusk Run pack had been rooting. The blossoms can think, he found himself saying as he turned them away from a mound that showed the Tusk Run pack had been rooting here. The fingers of Pachi, the trees themselves, are not dangerous, even when blooming, but they attract predators, imitating the thoughts of a wounded animal that is full of pain and worry.
Oh, that's
Vati
clever.
gasped.
That's a great that is a great mechanism. So he's like, okay,
Cool
in a world,
mechanism.
yeah, in a world where because there are, I mean, that's the thing. Plants will try and attract pollinators and things like that, or whatever. They have all different kinds of tricks to get pollinators, or to carnivorous plants will also have that ways to attract. So that makes so much sense. I love it.
Yeah. Vati gasped.
A plant that broadcasts a mental signature. Are you certain?
Yes.
I need one of those blossoms.
Okay. Seems dangerous to me, but
Yeah.
okay. The light shook as she turned to go back. Dusk spun and caught her by the arm. We must keep moving.
But
You will have another chance. He took a deep breath. Your people will soon infest this island like maggots on carrion. You will see other trees. Tonight we must go. Dawn approaches. He let go of her and turned back to his work. He had judged her wise for a home isler. Perhaps she would listen. She did. She followed behind. Pachi's fingers, first of the sky, the dead trapper, should not have died in that place. Truly, the trees were not that dangerous. They lived by opening many blossoms and attracting predators to come feast. The predators would then fight one another, and the tree would feed off the corpses. Sky must have stumbled across a tree as it was beginning to flower and got caught in what came. His aviar had not been enough to shield so many open blossoms. Who would have expected a death like that? After years on the island, surviving much more terrible dangers, to be caught by those simple flowers, it almost seemed a mockery on Pachi's part of the poor man.
that's how That's how it happens. You just die eventually. It seems like eventually you come afoul of something, and that's it.
One silly, stupid mistake. Dusk and Vati's path continued and soon grew steeper. They'd need to go uphill for a while before crossing to the downward slope that would lead to the other side of the island. Their trail, fortunately, would avoid Pachi's main peak, the point of the wedge that jutted up the easternmost side of the island. His camp had been near the south, and Vati's would be to the northeast, letting them skirt around the base of the wedge before arriving on the other beach. They fell into a rhythm, and she was quiet for a time. Eventually, atop a particular steep incline, he nodded for a break and squatted down to drink from his canteen. On Pachi, one did not simply sit, without care, upon a stump or log to rest. Consumed by worry and not a little frustration, he didn't notice what Vati was doing until it was too late. Oh no, what are you doing? What are you doing? She'd found something tucked into a branch, a long, colorful feather, a mating plume. Dusk leaped to his feet.
Yeah, it's a trap.
Yeah. Vati reached up toward the lower branches of the tree. A set of spikes on ropes dropped from a nearby tree as Vati pulled the branch. Why would you do that, Vati? Why?
She doesn't know.
No, I guess not. But she fell for the first. Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. They swung down as Dusk reached her, one arm thrown in the way. A spike hit, the long, thin nail ripping into his skin and jutting out the other side, bloodied, and stopped a hair from Vati's cheek. She screamed. Oh, dear. That's, I hope that wasn't poisoned.
Yeah. She screamed. He's dying. Well, not dying, but like he's screaming too. That sounds really, really painful. Thank you.
Many predators on Pachi were hard of hearing, but still that wasn't wise. Dusk didn't care. He yanked the spike from his skin. Oh no, don't pull it out. I mean, unless you can, well, okay. He yanked the spike from his skin, unconcerned with the bleeding for now, and checked the other spikes on the drop rope trap. No poison. Blessedly, they had not been poisoned.
Your arm.
It didn't. He grunted. It didn't hurt. Yet, she began fishing in her pack for a bandage, and he accepted her ministrations without complaint or groan, even as the pain came upon him.
I'm so sorry. I found a mating plume. That means an avian nest, so I thought to look in the tree. Have we stumbled across another trapper's safe camp?
She was babbling out words as she worked. Seemed appropriate. When he grew nervous, he grew even more quiet. She would do the opposite. He's a hunk. She was good with a bandage, again surprising him. The wound had not hit any major arteries. He would be fine, though using his left hand would not be easy. This would be an annoyance. When she had done, looking sheepish and guilty, he reached down and picked up the mating plume she had dropped. This, he said with a harsh whisper, holding it up before her, is the symbol of your ignorance. On the Pantheon Islands, nothing is easy, nothing is simple. That plume was placed by another trapper to catch someone who does not deserve to be here. Someone who thought to find an easy prize. You cannot be that person. Never move without asking yourself, is this too easy? She paled. Then she took the feather in her fingers. Come. He turned and walked on their way. That was the speech for an apprentice, he realized, upon their first major mistake. Oh, does that mean that she's going to be his apprentice at the end of this? That would be neat. They stop the big bad invaders, and then she learns to respect the tradition.
Oh,
no, that's too much to hope for.
No, but you know what? Just hope. It's fine.
He turned and walked on their way. That was the speech for an apprentice, he realized, upon their first major mistake. A ritual among trappers. What had possessed him to give it to her? She followed behind, head bowed, appropriately shamed. She didn't realize the honor he had just paid her, if unconsciously. They walked onward, an hour or more passing. By the time she spoke, for some reason, he almost welcomed the words, breaking upon the sounds of the jungle.
I'm sorry.
You need not be sorry, only careful.
I understand.
She took a deep breath, following behind him on that path.
And I am sorry, not just about your arm, about this island, about what is coming. I think it's inevitable, but I do wish that it did not mean the end of such a grand tradition.
Words. He hated trying to find words. It was not dusk when I was born, he finally said, then hacked down a swamp vine and held his breath against the noxious fumes that it released toward him. They were only dangerous for a few moments.
Excuse me?
Vati asked, keeping her distance from the swamp vine.
You were born...
My mother did not name me for the time of the day. I was named because my mother saw the dusk of our people. The sun will soon set on us, she often told me. He looked back to Vati, letting her pass him and enter a small clearing. Oddly, she smiled at him. Why had he found those words to speak? He followed into the clearing, concerned at himself. He had not given those words to his uncle. Only his parents knew the source of his name. And what a source for a name!
Yeah, she's so it's like he's like this herald or this marker of the end of their he's named Dusk because he's an edgy emo boy.
No, because his mom was an edgy goth girl.
No, it is an amazing quote, yeah. Because she's just saying, I'm so sorry that it's going to happen, and basically he finds that to say because it was so inevitable. I know this. It's not, doesn't mean I'm happy about it, but I'm just going to walk to let a cat into another room so you guys don't have to hear constant meowing. So, one sec. Sorry about this. Axel, apologize to the people. Go.
He was not certain why he'd told this scribe from an evil company, but it did feel good to have said them. A night maw broke through between two trees behind Vati. Oh shit. Oh no. I mean, of course we were going to have a confrontation with one by the end of this, or at some point. So, but oh no. A night maw broke through between two trees behind Vati. The enormous beast would have been as tall as a tree if it had stood upright. Instead, it leaned forward in a prowling posture, powerful legs behind, bearing most of its weight, its two clawed forelegs ripping up the ground. It reached forward, its long neck, beak open, razor-sharp and deadly. It looked like a bird, in the same way that a wolf looked like a lapdog. Oh no.
I just went, now I'm like, Monster Hunter, let's go. So cool. Sorry.
Would you rather fight 100 horse? What's the silly question? Would you rather fight bird-sized horse or a horse-sized bird?
I think the silly question is 100 what's the name? 100 bird-sized horses or one horse-sized
one
bird.
Horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses. Well, Kitte?
Yeah, the answer is neither. I don't want to fight. They must be my friends.
Agreed. And that makes me want to check what the progress is on the poll, which is 90% ranger, 10% druid. That sounds about right. Ending poll. Wait, 89% and 10%. What happened to the 1%? Too rich to bother voting.
The 1%.
It looks like stupid jokes. It looked like a bird in the same way that a wolf looked like a lapdog. He threw his machete, an instinctive reaction, for he did not have time for thought. He did not have time for fear. That snapping beak, as tall as a door, would have the two of them dead in moments. Horse-sized duck sounds delicious. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
His machete glanced off the beak and actually cut the creature on the side of the head. That drew its attention, making it hesitate for just a moment. Dusk leaped for Vati. She stepped back from him, setting the butt of her tube against the ground. He needed to pull her away too. The explosion deafened him. Okay.
Woo!
Smoke bloomed around Vati, who stood, wide-eyed, having dropped the lantern, oil spilling. The sudden sound stunned Dusk, and he almost collided with her as the night maw lurched and fell, skidding, the ground thumping from the impact. Dusk found himself on the ground. He scrambled to his feet, backing away from the twitching night maw mere inches from him. Lit by flickering lantern light, it was all leathery skin that was bumpy, like that of a bird who had lost her feathers. It was dead! Vati had killed it!
Yeah, Vati, woo!
Oh, man. It's a brain-reading T-Rex. Terrifying. Yes! But hey, they have a weakness. Guns. It
She
was
just
dead.
gave it some freedom. She was like, there you go.
Vati had killed it. She said something. Vati had killed a night maw.
Dusk.
Her voice seemed distant. He raised a hand to his forehead, which had belatedly begun to prickle with sweat. His wounded arm throbbed, but he was otherwise tense. He felt as if he should be running. He had never wanted to be so close to one of these. Never! She'd actually killed it! He turned toward her, his eyes wide. Vati was trembling, but she covered it well.
So, that worked. We weren't certain it would, even though we'd prepared these specifically for the Nightmares.
Oh, that was so analytically delivered, Kite. No surprise there, just bemusement.
Well, she did. She's like, oh, there you go. I mean, be happy. Relief. And also, just if we're going with the theme of progress, the Nightmare is like, that's it. It's death. Okay, if you come across that. But now progress has completely nullified one of the biggest fears you've had. It seems wrong.
Also, yeah. But also I had an image of Archer in the jungle going, meep, meep, or whatever noise it is that he does with his tinnitus.
Yeah.
Changes trapper meta.
Exactly. The trappers are like, damn, actually, that's great. Like, how are you supposed to feel? You're like, oh, they're great. Now Nightmares can't kill me. But then again, it's like, but wait, now the whole island changes. Everything changes.
It's like a cannon. Like from one of the ships, only in your hands.
Yes.
He turned back toward the beast. Actually, it wasn't dead. Not completely. It twitched and let out a plaintive screech that shocked him, even with his hearing muffled. The weapon had fired that spear right into the beast's chest. The night moth quaked and thrashed a weak leg. We could kill them all, Dusk said. Oh, but do you say that wanting to?
Well, we'll see.
That would make you a bit closer to Vati and her crew than one might think.
He's thinking the Nightmares kill birds and kill other things on the island and kill trappers. It's like, we could kill them all. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's an ecosystem.
Now they can make
explosive traps. Smart. We could kill them all, Dusk said. He turned to them, rushed over to Vati, taking her with his right hand, the arm that wasn't wounded. With those weapons, we could kill them all. Every night maw, maybe the shadows too. Okay, so he is excited.
Well, yes, it has been discussed. However, there are important parts of the ecosystem on these islands. Removing the apex predators could have undesirable results. So now she's thinking, well, now, yeah, that's
such a great flip.
Yeah, from outside, she has more care for the ecosystem. He's just like, no, I do what I want. That's a great flip. You're right.
Undesirable results. Dusk ran his left hand through his hair. They'd be gone. All of them. I don't care what other problems you think it would cause. They would all be dead. That's really,
Short-sighted.
yeah. And it feels a little bit uncharacteristic.
He's just thinking of survival. He's not understanding that, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, well, there's more birds, and then it's like, well, there's more birds, there's more everything. But what happens when there are too many predators? Too few predators.
Overpopulation.
Oh, and to be fair, Gladys, yeah, you're right. One of them killed his uncle.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's very true.
Right. He's definitely just thinking about staying alive and how that changes things.
Maybe the shadows too.
Well, yes, it has been discussed. However, they are important parts of the ecosystem on these islands. Removing the apex predators could have undesirable results.
Undesirable results. Dusk ran his left hand through his hair. They'd be gone. All of them. I don't care what other problems you think it would cause. They would all be dead. Vati snorted, picking up the lantern and stamping out the fires it had started.
I thought trappers were connected to nature.
We are. That's how I know we would all be better off without any of these things.
You are disabusing me of many romantic notions about your kind, Dusk.
Good line, she said, circling the dying beast. Dusk whistled, holding up his arm. Cokerly fluttered down from high branches in the chaos and explosion. Dusk had not seen the bird fly away. Sock still clung to his shoulder with a death grip, her claws digging into his skin through the cloth. He hadn't noticed. Cokerly landed on his arm and gave an apologetic chirp. It wasn't your fault, Dusk said soothingly. They prowl the night. Even when they cannot sense our minds, they can smell us. Their sense of smell was said to be incredible. This one had come up the trail behind them. It must have crossed their path and followed it. What do you mean you're kind?
What do you mean, my kind? What are you talking about?
It wasn't your fault. They prowl the night. Even when they cannot sense our minds, they can smell us. Their sense of smell was said to be incredible. This one had come up the trail behind them. It must have crossed their path and followed it. Dangerous. His uncle always claimed the night moths were growing smarter, that they knew they could not hunt men only by their minds. I should have taken us across more streams, Dusk thought, reaching up and rubbing Sock's neck to soothe her. There just isn't time. His corpse lay wherever he looked, draped across a rock hanging from the vines of trees, slumped beneath the dying night moth's claw. The beast trembled once more, then amazingly it lifted its gruesome head and let out a last screech, not as loud as those that normally sounded in the night, but bone-chilling and horrid. Dusk stepped back despite himself, and Sock chirped nervously. Other night moth screeches rose in the night, distant.
Uh-oh.
That sound, he had been trained to recognize that sound as the sound of death. Uh-oh, indeed, Kita.
Mm-hmm. It's the
Yeah,
sound of death. And, but wait, does she have another spear thing? How many shots she got?
How long does it take to reload?
Mm-hmm.
Too long. I'm pretty sure it will be too long. She might be able to get one more right now, maybe, but they should start running. But running wouldn't be good because ants in the night.
Yeah, you can't move very quickly through this forest.
Yeah. We're going, he said, stalking across the ground and pulling Vati away from the dying beast, which had lowered its head and fallen silent.
Dusk?
She did not resist as he pulled her away. One of the other night moths sounded again in the night. Was it closer? Oh, Pachi, please, Dusk thought. No, not this. He pulled her faster, reaching for his machete at his side, but it was not there. He had thrown it. He took out the one he had gathered from his fallen rival, then dragged her out of the clearing, back into the jungle, moving quickly. He could no longer worry about brushing against death ants.
Okay, so he can't worry about it, so we're just gonna take our chances.
Sure. Not entirely unreasonable. That's fair.
Yeah.
A greater danger was coming. The calls of death came again.
Are those getting closer?
Dusk did not answer. It was a question, but he did not know the answer. At least his hearing was recovering. He released her hand, moving more quickly, almost at a trot, faster than he ever wanted to go through the jungle, day or night.
Dusk! Will they come? To the call of the dying one. Is that something that they do?
How should I know? I've never known one of them to be killed before. He saw
Yeah,
the
I'm sorry, that's literally, this is new to him. They don't die. That's not how this stuff works.
He saw the tube, again carried over her shoulder, lit by the light of the lantern she carried. That gave him pause, though his instincts screamed at him to keep moving and he felt a fool. Your weapon, you can use it again?
Yes, once more.
Once more? A half-dozen screeches sounded in the night.
Yes. I only brought 3 spears and enough powder for 3 shots. I tried firing one at the shadow. It didn't do much.
Well, good effort. Didn't do much doesn't mean it didn't do anything. No, but I assume that means it did nothing.
Yeah, it did like maybe itched it or something.
He spoke no further, ignoring his wounded arm. The bandage was in need of changing, and towing her through the jungle. The calls came again and again. Agitated, how did one escape night maws? His AVR clung to him, a bird on each shoulder. He had to leap over his corpse as they traversed a gulch and came up the other side. How do you escape them? He thought, remembering his uncle's training. You don't draw their attention in the first place.
Yeah, it's a bit late for that. Sorry. We could just... Now what?
Yeah. They were fast. Cokerly would hide his mind, but if they picked up his trail at the dead one... Water. He stopped in the night, turning right then left. But what about piranhas? Or leeches? Where would he find a stream? Pachi was an island. Fresh water came from rainfall mostly. The largest lake, the only one, was up the wedge, toward the peak. Along the eastern side, the island rose to some heights with cliffs on all sides. Rainfall collected there in Pachi's eye. The river was his tears. It was a dangerous place to go with Vati in tow. Their path had skirted the slope up the heights, heading across the island toward the northern beach. They were close. Those screeches behind spurred him on. Pachi would just have to forgive him for what came next. Dusk seized Vati's hand and towed her in a more eastern direction. She did not complain, though she did keep looking over her shoulder. The screeches grew closer. He ran.
So he's saying Pachi would just have to forgive him for what came next. What do you not bring anyone, whatever they do next? What are they? They're going to the water. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just scared for them. The screeches grew closer. He ran. He ran as he had never expected to do on Pachi, wild and reckless. Leaping over troughs, around fallen logs coated in moss, through the dark underbrush, scaring away meekers and startling AVR slumbering in the branches above. It was foolish. It was crazy. But did it matter? Somehow he knew those other things would not claim him. The kings of Pachi hunted him. Lesser dangers would not dare steal from their betters. That's a cool line. Vati followed with difficulty. Those skirts were trouble, but she caught up to him each time. Dusk had to occasionally stop and cut their way through underbrush. Urgent, frantic. He expected her to keep up, and she did. A piece of him, buried deep beneath the terror, was impressed. This woman would have made a fantastic trapper. Instead, she would probably destroy all the trappers. The thing. Also, hello, MGP. Welcome. He froze as screeches sounded behind. So close. Vati gasped, and Dusk turned back to his work. Not far to go. He hacked through a dense patch of undergrowth and ran on, sweat streaming down the sides of his face. Jostling light came from Vati's lantern behind. The scene behind him was one of horrific shadows dancing on the jungle's boughs, leaves, ferns, and rocks. This is your fault, Pachi, he thought with an unexpected fury. The screeches seemed almost on top of him. Was that breaking brush you could hear behind? We are your priests, and yet you hate us. You hate all. Dusk broke from the jungle and out onto the banks of the river, small by mainland standards, but it would do. He led Vati right into it, splashing into the cold waters. He turned upstream. What else could he do? Downstream would lead closer to those sounds, the calls of death. Of the dusk, he thought, of the dusk. The waters came only to their calves, bitter cold, the coldest water on the island, though he did not know why. They slipped and scrambled as they ran, best they could, upriver. They passed through some narrows with leaching-covered rock, walls on either side twice as tall as a man, then burst out into the basin, a place men did not go, a place he had visited only once. A cool emerald lake rested here, sequestered.
Okay, so this is like some sort of sacred place. That's why he's like, you'll just have to forgive me. But it's like, now he's angry at the island anyway. He's like, you know what? Why you got to make stuff so difficult in the first place?
Indeed. Continue talking for a moment, please.
If I suddenly disappear, it's all Daisy, my cat, because she's decided to join us, and she's all over my desk and doesn't want to cooperate. Come here, Daisy. Please, could you just sit on my lap so that we can continue reading? Zebus, I love how conflicted Dusk is about Pachi, his lifestyle and progress. Yeah, he's going through it, and he doesn't even have, as well, he doesn't have time to really ponder it. He just has to go through all of the emotions, just literally the way that he is, running through all of the whole experience, feeling it all at once, not a very measured philosophical way of experiencing it. Are you back?
I am back. Honey Loquat, Ninjampe Pakoa is secret voice actor secret for when you're doing intense sessions like video games and stuff. You're doing, all of the battle cries and what have you. A lot of voiceover studios and voice actors have the syrup, particularly when they go on vocal rest. So, and it tastes good too. That's the plug. That's the sponsorship. Although this isn't quite the same as a video game session, but anyway, where was I?
Almost 3 hours. It's intensive.
Yeah. A place men did not go. A place he had visited only once. A cool emerald lake rested here, sequestered. Dusk towed Vati to the side, out of the river, toward some brush. Perhaps she would not see. He huddled down with her, raising a finger to his lips, then turned down the light of the lantern she still held. Night Moths could not see well, but perhaps the dim light would help in more ways than one. They waited there, on the shore of the small lake, hoping that the water had washed away their scent, hoping the night moths would grow confused or distracted. For one thing about this place was that the basin had steep walls and there was no way out other than the river. If the night moths came up it, Dusk and Vati would be trapped.
Ooh, the trapper is trapped.
Very nice switcheroo there. Screeches sounded. The creatures had reached the river. Dusk waded in near darkness and so squeezed his eyes shut. He prayed to Pachi, whom he loved, whom he hated. Vati gasped softly.
What?
So she had seen. Of course she had. She was a seeker, a learner, a questioner. Why must men ask so many questions?
Dusk, there are aviar here, in these branches. Hundreds of them.
Ooh. Neat.
This was definitely not a good place for him to bring her, but he had no choice.
No, but hopefully, they'll protect him and them in some way. See, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Maybe, okay, so maybe Dusk is the ranger, and maybe there's a druid, and the druid is going to have all the birds protect them. We'll see. She spoke in a hushed, frightened tone, even as they awaited death itself. She saw and could not help speaking.
Sorry.
Have you seen them?
Have you seen them? What is this place? So
She
many
hesitated.
juveniles. So many juveniles, barely able to fly.
They come here. Every bird from every island. In their youth, they must come here. Okay, this is where they get their powers then, right?
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
Right?
Right. So this is a problem because now this is the more that the progress people know. Listen, we just have to accept that this is the end of an era.
Yes. Let us mourn the times, but move forward in wisdom. Hopefully.
Or just
Preserve
die.
what you can.
I don't want to see it. Like if I was him, I just wouldn't want to see this. I would just want to die trying to stop it. Okay.
I'd rather live. I don't want to die. Sorry, if it's me or the birds, I'm picking me. I think. Now, if it were me against, saving a baby, we'll have a different discussion. But anyway, he opened his eyes. Looking up, he had turned down the lantern, but it was still bright enough to see them roosting there. Some stirred at the light and the sound. They stirred more as the night moths screeched below. Sock chirped on his shoulder, terrified. Cokerly, for once, had nothing to say. It's the forbidden fruit.
Daisy, your tale. Every bird from every island.
Vati said, putting it together.
They all come here to this place. Are you certain?
Yes. It was a thing that trappers knew. You could not capture a bird before it had visited Pachi. Otherwise, it would be able to bestow no talent.
They come here. We know they migrated between islands. Why do they come here?
Was there any point in holding back now? She would figure it out. Still, he did not speak. Let her do so.
They gain their talents here, don't they? How? Is it where they are trained? Is this how you made a bird who is not an AVR into one? You brought a hatchling here and then...
She frowned, raising her lantern.
I recognize those trees. They are the ones you called Pachi's fingers.
Oh no, is that how they get their powers?
The trees! Interesting.
A dozen of them grew here, the largest concentration on the island, and beneath them their fruit littered the ground, much of it eaten, some of it only halfway so. Bites taken out by birds of all stripes. Vati saw him looking and frowned.
The fruit?
Worms, he whispered in reply. A light seemed to go on in her eyes.
It's not the birds. It's never been. It's a parasite. They carry a parasite that bestows talents. That's why those raised away from the island cannot gain the abilities, and why a mainland bird you brought here could.
Yes.
This changes everything, Dusk. Everything.
Yes.
Aww.
Yes. Oh no. Of the dusk, born during that dusk, or bringer of it, what had he done?
Oh, he's like, I don't know. It would have happened anyway. I feel like it would have happened. They were going to explore this whole ass island anyway.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you have to welcome them in. Just I mean, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you're gonna do, but please do it responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
Downriver, the night moth screeches drew closer. They had decided to search upriver. They were clever, more clever than men off the islands thought them to be. Vati gasped, turning toward the small river canyon.
Isn't this dangerous? The trees are blooming. The nightmares will come. But no, so many avia. They can hide those blossoms like they do a man's mind. Or can they? Sorry. They can hide those blossoms like they do a man's mind.
Okay, wait a second. Just to clarify, the worms are a parasite that bestow the power to the birds. Is that correct? That's what
They
that
eat
was?
the worms, yeah, whatever they, yeah.
Has a trapper tried eating a worm?
I don't know. What do trappers even eat?
I don't want to be the one to try it, but I kind of want someone to.
Look, if it's gonna give you powers, let's go.
No. All minds in this place are invisible, always, regardless of AVR.
But how? Why? The worms?
Dusk didn't know, and for now didn't care. I'm trying to protect you, Pachi. Dusk looked toward Pachi's fingers. I need to stop the men and their device. I know it. Why? Why do you hunt me?
Yeah, that's
Perhaps-
actually, yeah, it's like you can't reason with nature.
Yeah, the birds don't have powers, the traitors. Perhaps it was because he knew so much, too much, more than any man had known, for he had asked questions. Men and their questions.
They're coming up the river, aren't they?
The answer seemed obvious. He did not reply.
No. I won't die with this knowledge, Dusk. I won't. There must be a way.
There is, he said, standing beside her. He took a deep breath. So I finally pay for it. He took Sok carefully in his hand and placed her on Vati's shoulder. He pried Cokerly free too. So help me if Dusk dies. So help me.
I think it would be a fitting end for him, though. He basically brings the end of the trappers and dies, and he says he's trying to protect. I don't know.
I guess. But then maybe Vati will move forward, like being like, I'm not going to share this one particular secret. That can stay sacred for a little.
I don't know what she's like.
Yeah, no, I don't know her well enough yet. He pried Cokerly free too.
What are you doing?
I will go as far as I can, Dusk said, handing Cokerly toward her. The bird bit with annoyance at his hands, although never strong enough to draw blood. You will need to hold him. He will try to follow me.
No, wait. We can hide in the lake.
They will find us. It isn't deep enough by far to hide us.
But you can't.
They are nearly here, woman, he said, forcing Cokerly into her hands. The men of the company will not listen to me if I tell them to turn off the device. You are smart. You can make them stop. You can reach them. With Cokerly, you can reach them. Be ready to go. She looked at him, stunned, but she seemed to realize that there was no other way. She stood, holding Cokerly in two hands as he pulled out the Journal of First of the Sky, then his own book that listed where his AVR were, and tucked them into her pack. Finally, he stepped back into the river. He could hear a rushing sound downstream. He would have to go quickly to reach the end of the canyon before they arrived. If he could draw them out into the jungle, even a short way to the south, Vati could slip away. As he entered the stream, his visions of death finally vanished. No more corpses bobbing in the water, lying on the banks. Sok had realized what was happening. She gave a final chirp. Oh my god, this is so sad.
No.
This is so sad.
The birds stay alive, but still very sad.
No, the bird's saying goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
It knows, he knows. Or she. I don't remember right now. She. He started to run. One of Pachi's fingers, growing right next to the mouth of the canyon, was blooming.
Wait!
He should not have stopped as Vati yelled at him. He should have continued on, for time was so slim. However, the sight of that flower, along with her yell, made him hesitate. The
Hello?
flower. Sorry.
That was quite a
yeah.
hesitation.
Yeah. So what, are they going to use the flower to draw in some of those things that I've been imagining were like boars with tusks, and then maybe they'll fight the T-Rex things? Maybe.
I don't know how that doesn't how do those trees work if the minds are silent in any case.
Dusk, eat a worm and see if you develop powers.
Immediately.
It struck him as it must have struck Vati. An idea. Vati ran for her pack, letting go of Cokerly, who immediately flew to his shoulder and started chirping at him in annoyed chastisement. Dusk didn't listen. He yanked the flower off. It was as large as a man's head, with a large, bulging part at the center. It was invisible in this basin, like they all were.
A flower that can think.
Vati said, breathing quickly, fishing in her pack.
A flower that can draw the attention of predators.
Dusk pulled out his rope as she brought out her weapon and prepared it. He lashed the flower to the end of the spear, sticking out slightly from the tube. Night moth screeches echoed up the cavern. He could see their shadows, hear them splashing. He stumbled back from Vati as she crouched down, set the weapon's butt against the ground, and pulled a lever at the base. The explosion once again nearly deafened him. Aviar all around the rim of the basin screeched and called in fright, taking wing. A storm of feathers and flapping ensued, and through the middle of it, Vati's spear shot into the air, flower on the end. It arced out over the canyon into the night. I think the parasite don't live in human bodies, only in birds. They should try that already.
Yeah, somebody's probably tried it if they knew that.
Yeah.
And like even incidentally, they might have just tried it.
Dusk grabbed her by the shoulder and pulled her back along the river into the lake itself. They slipped into the shallow water, Cokerly on his shoulder, Sock on hers. They left the lantern burning, giving a quiet light to the sudden empty basin. The lake was not deep, 2 or 3 feet. Even crouching, it didn't cover them completely. The night moths stopped in the canyon. His lantern light showed a couple of them in the shadows, large as huts, turning and watching the sky. They were smart, but like the Meekers, not as smart as men. Pachi, Dusk thought. Pachi, please. The night moths turned back down the canyon, following the mental signature broadcast by the flowering plant, and as Dusk watched, his corpse bobbing in the water nearby grew increasingly translucent, then faded away entirely. Dusk counted to 100, then slipped from the waters. Vati, sodden in her skirts, did not speak as she grabbed the lantern. They left the weapon, its shots expended. The calls from the night moths grew farther and farther away as Dusk led the way out of the canyon, then directly north, slightly downslope. He kept expecting the screeches to turn and follow. They did not.
Woo! We don't have death! Yeah! And
Yay!
yet gives you powers in this world. Yeah. Maybe.
Okay, first crisis averted.
There's been crises all over the flippin' place.
Yeah.
So another crisis averted. That's all I'll say.
Yep. And are we getting a new POV? The company fortress was a horridly impressive sight. A work of logs and cannons right at the edge of the water, guarded by an enormous iron-hulled ship. Smoke rose from it, the burning of morning cook fires. A short distance away, what must have been a dead shadow rotted in the sun, its mountainous carcass draped half in the water, half out. He didn't see his own corpse anywhere, though on the final leg of their trip to the fortress he had seen it several times, always in a place of immediate danger. Sock's visions had returned to normal. Dusk turned back to the what?
So Sock's visions had returned to normal, and remember, this machine was charging overnight, basically, charging up. So now the visions are back to normal. It's interesting.
Yes. Dusk turned back to the fortress, which he did not enter. He preferred to remain on the rocky, familiar shore, perhaps 20 feet from the entrance. His wounded arm aching as the company people rushed out through the gate to meet Vati. Their scouts on the upper walls kept careful watch on Dusk. A trapper was not to be trusted. Librelita. A little behind. This trick reminds me of when Vin threw a bag of coins to trick Kelsier in their training. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it was a
see
good
that.
one. Mhm.
Yes. Even standing here, some 20 feet from the wide wooden gates into the fort, he could smell how wrong the place was. It was stuffed with the scents of men, sweaty bodies, the smell of oil, and other newer scents that he recognized from his recent trips to the home isles. Scents that made him feel like an outsider among his own people. The company men wore sturdy clothing, trousers like Dusk's but far better tailored, shirts and rugged jackets. Jackets? In Pachi's heat? These people bowed to Vati, showing her more deference than Dusk would have expected. They drew hands from shoulder to shoulder as they started speaking, a symbol of respect. Foolishness. Anyone could make a gesture like that. It didn't mean anything. True respect included far more than a hand waved in the air. Cool, neat.
Cool.
Um, why does she get so much respect?
Who is she?
Who is she? But they did treat her like more than a simple scribe. She was better placed in the company than he'd assumed. Not his problem anymore, regardless. Vati looked at him, then back at her people.
We must hurry to the machine. The one from above. We must turn it off.
Good. She would do her part. Dusk turned to walk away. Should he give words at parting? He'd never felt the need before, but today it felt wrong not to say something. He started
Aw.
walking. What?
He feels compelled to say a thing.
He likes her.
Yeah, usually he doesn't talk.
I'm glad he likes her. Because
Well, he's been through stuff with her. Whether he's annoyed, he likes her fully or not, it's just, he's like, yes, we've shared some trauma bond.
Trauma bonding, yeah. He started walking. Words. He'd never been good with words. Turn it off, one of the men said from behind. What do you mean, Lady Vati?
You don't need to feign innocence, Wins. I know you turned it on in my absence.
But we didn't. Dusk paused. What? The man sounded sincere, but then Dusk was no expert on human emotions. From what he'd seen of people from the home isles, they could fake emotions as easily as they faked a gesture of respect.
What did you do then?
We opened it. Oh no.
Why would you do that?
Dusk turned to regard them, but he didn't need to hear the answer. The answer was before him, in the vision of a dead island he'd misinterpreted.
What?
What?
Okay, this is cool. I mean, it's cool as in like, oh my gosh. Scary.
But what does it mean? What was released? What happened?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to figure it out. We need to know. It's not what we thought, which is great twist. Scary.
We figured that we should see if we could puzzle out how a machine worked. Vati, the insides, they're complex beyond what we could have imagined. But there are seeds there, things we could... No, Dusk said, rushing toward them. One of the sentries above planted an arrow at his feet. Wow, Dick.
he missed. That guy didn't do that deliberately. He was gonna hit him. He just got lucky.
Maybe. Either way, I mean, presumably, like, whatever. It's fine. He lurched to a stop, looking wildly from Vati up toward the walls. Couldn't they see? The bulge in mud that announced a death ant den? The game trail? The distinctive curl of a cutaway vine? Wasn't it obvious?
It's a trap!
It's a trap. It will destroy us. Don't you see? For a moment, they all just stared at him. He had a chance. Words. He needed words. That machine is death ants. A den. How could he explain? He couldn't. In his anxiety, words fled him, like aviar fluttering away into the night. The others finally started moving, pulling Vati toward the safety of their treasonous fortress.
You said the corpses are gone.
Vati said as she was ushered through the gates.
We've succeeded. I will see that the machine is not engaged on this trip. I promise you this, Dusk.
But it was never meant to be engaged! The enormous wooden gates of the fortress creaked closed, and he lost sight of her. Dusk cursed. Why hadn't he been able to explain? Because he didn't know how to talk. For once in his life, that seemed to matter.
Oh, the cruel irony of it. Oh.
So what? This is like Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it like a parasite? Is it more shadow monster?
The seeds, so the plants and whatever is in there. So that's the problem.
I'm just. Can we figure it out?
Yeah, we will. Oh, you want to figure it out right now?
Yeah, like, could we? Do we have the relevant information? Hi, Krenak.
Nah,
ist ans. You are such a poet.
I just love the irony. The fact that he's so connected to the island is why he knows this. But the fact that he's so connected to the island and not to humanity makes it difficult for him to explain to them why they're all in danger. That's great.
Furious, frustrated, he stalked away from that place and its awful smells. Halfway to the tree line, however, he stopped, then turned. Sock fluttered down, landing on his shoulder and cooing softly. Wait, was that it? Was that it? He just yells that and leaves?
Well,
everyone just leaves?
They went back into the fortress. Then they were like, no, I turned off the machine. It's cool. We good. He's like, no, but he couldn't explain it very well.
Halfway to the tree line, however, he stopped, then turned. Sock fluttered down, landing on his shoulder and cooing softly. Questions, those questions wanted into his brain. Instead, he yelled at the guards. He demanded they return Vati to him. He even pled. Nothing happened. They wouldn't speak to him. Rude. Very rude.
He just seems like a madman to them. They just like, oh, there's just this wild man over here. He's just a savage.
Yeah, but very uncool of Vati. Like, she should be putting in a bit more effort here into trying to understand what it is that he's trying to say.
She's just like, oh, now I'm back to civilization. Thank goodness. That was wild. Bye.
Yeah. Nothing happened. They wouldn't speak to him. Finally, he started to feel foolish. He turned back toward the trees and continued on his way. His assumptions were probably wrong. After all, the corpses were gone. Everything could go back to normal. Normal. Could anything ever be normal with that fortress looming behind him? He shook his head, entering the canopy. The tense humidity of Pachi's jungle should have calmed him. Instead, it annoyed him. Hi all, looking forward to a VOD of my favorite Sanderson short novel. Couldn't get up at 6 a.m. to start with you. But no worries. And hey, now you have the benefit of listening at 1.5 or 2x speed, which is best speed.
You can skip interruptions too.
Yeah. No judgment to those that listen at normal speaking speed. Just to clarify there. Normal. Could anything ever be normal with that fortress looming behind him? He shook his head, entering the canopy. The dense humidity of Pachi's jungle should have calmed him. Instead, it annoyed him. As he started the trek toward another of his safe camps, he was so distracted that he could have been a youth his first time on Sori. He almost stumbled straight onto a gaping death ant den. He didn't even notice the vision Sock sent. This time, dumb luck saved him as he stubbed his toe on something, looked down, and only then spotted both corpse and crack crawling with motes of yellow. He growled, then sneered. Still you try to kill me? He shouted, looking up at... Still you try to kill me? He shouted, looking up at the canopy. Pachi! Silence. The ones who protect you are the ones you try the hardest to kill, Dusk shouted. Why? The words were lost in the jungle. It consumed them. You deserve this, Pachi! What is coming to you? You deserve to be destroyed! He breathed out in gasps, sweating, satisfied at having finally said those things. Perhaps there was a purpose for words. Part of him, as traitorous as Vati and her company... Part of him, as traitorous as Vati and her company, was glad that Pachi would fall to their machines. I hope that's cathartic for you.
Yeah, this place has taken people from him, and it's frustrating. It's him yelling at it is finally he's admitting that this place isn't great.
Yeah. Of course, then the company itself would fall. To the ones above, his entire people, the world itself. He bowed his head in the shadows of the canopy, sweat dripping down the sides of his face. Then he fell to his knees, heedless of the nest just 3 strides away. Sock nuzzled into his hair. Above, in the branches, Cokerly chirped uncertainly. It's a trap, you see. The ones above have rules. They can't trade with us until we're advanced enough, just like a man can't, in good conscience, bargain with a child until they are grown. And so, they have left their machines for us to discover, to prod at and poke. The dead man was a ruse. Vati was meant to have those machines. Ooh, clever. Here's something. We're not going to tell you how to use it, but if you figure out how to use it, we aren't going to be too upset.
Yeah, like, oopsie, here's your, oh, you found this? Oh, look, we left a manual here. And also it translates our language. This thing over here translates, yeah, so.
There will be explanations, left as if carelessly for us to dig into and learn. And at some point in the near future, we will build something like one of their machines. We will have grown more quickly than we should have. We will be childlike still, ignorant, but the laws from above will let these visitors trade with us, and then they will take this land for themselves. That was what he should have said. Protecting Pachi was impossible. Protecting the AVR was impossible. Protecting their entire world was impossible. Why hadn't he explained it? Perhaps because it wouldn't have done any good. As Vati had said, progress would come, if you wanted to call it that. Dusk had arrived. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. If you can't break the Prime Directive, bend them. It's like he said, it's too easy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just...
Kite, do you think you and I could have figured that out?
Yeah.
Okay. Dusk had arrived. Sock left his shoulder, winging away. Dusk looked after her, then cursed. She did not land nearby. Though flying was difficult for her, she fluttered on, disappearing from his sight.
Uh-oh.
Sock? What's happening?
Why is she leaving?
Sock? He asked, rising and stumbling after the AVR. He fought back the way he had come, following Sock's squawks. A few moments later, he lurched out of the jungle. Vati stood on the rocks before her fortress. Okay. Can you say it? Can you say it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you found the words.
Yes. Dusk hesitated at the brim of the jungle. Vati was alone, and even the sentries had retreated. Had they cast her out? No. He could see that the gate was cracked, and some people watched from inside. Sock had landed on Vati's shoulder down below. Dusk frowned, reaching his hand to the side and letting Cokerly land on his arm. Then he strode forward, calmly making his way down the rocky shore until he was standing just before Vati. She'd changed into a new dress, though there were still snarls in her hair. She smelled of flowers, and her eyes were terrified. What did you see? Don't look into the void. Don't see what stares back. He'd traveled the darkness with her, had faced nightmaws, had seen her near to death. And she had not looked this worried. What? He asked, finding his voice hoarse.
We found instructions. Oh my god, I made a joke. I thought it was a joke, guys. When I said there was a manual, it was a joke, guys. We found instructions in the machine. A manual on its workings, left there as if accidentally by someone who worked on it before. The manual is in their language, but the smaller machine I have.
It translates.
The manual details how the machine was constructed. It says it's so complex I can barely comprehend it, but it seems to explain concepts and ideas, not just give the workings of the machine.
Are you not happy? You will have your flying machines soon, Vati. Sooner than anyone could have imagined. Wordless, she held something up, a single feather, a mating plume. She had kept it.
Never move without asking yourself, is this too easy? You said it was a trap as I was pulled away. When we found the manual, Oh, Dusk, they are planning to do to us what we are doing to Pachi, aren't they?
Dusk nodded.
We'll lose it all. We can't fight them. They'll find an excuse. They'll seize the Aviar. It makes perfect sense. The Aviar use the worms. We use the Aviar. The ones above use us. It's inevitable, isn't it?
Yes, he thought. He opened his mouth to say it, and Sock chirped. He frowned and turned back toward the island, jutting from the ocean. Arrogant, destructive. Pachi. Father. And finally, at long last, Dusk understood. No.
But
He undid his pants pocket, then reached deeply into it, digging around. Finally, he pulled something out, the remnants of a feather, just the shaft now, a mating plume that his uncle had given him so many years ago when he'd first fallen into a trap on Sori. He held it up, remembering the speech he'd been given, like every trapper. This is the symbol of your ignorance. Nothing is easy, nothing is simple. Vati held hers, old and new. No, they will not have us. We will see through their traps, and we will not fall for their tricks, for we have been trained by the Father himself for this very day. She stared at his feather, then up at him.
do you really think that? They are cunning.
They may be cunning, but they have not lived on Pachi. We will gather the other trappers. We will not let ourselves be taken in. She nodded hesitantly, and some of the fear seemed to leave her. She turned and waved for those behind her to open the gates to the building. Again, the sense of mankind washed over him. Vati looked back, then held out her hand to him.
You will help, then.
His corpse appeared at her feet, and Sock chirped warningly. Danger. Yes, the path ahead would include much danger. Dusk took Vati's hand and stepped into the fortress anyway.
Woo! Damn!
Whoa!
You know, some of them have lived on really shit planets.
I was just thinking that. Storms.
You know what? Yeah. And
Mist during the
Bimo,
day.
stop it. Stop it, Bimo.
Oh, that was an excellent story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to go back and reread the first couple pages of it now that I understand how some of it's written, so to speak. The seeing of the corpses, etc.
Okay. Pachi did it on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, very Jumanji.
Very Tarzan.
Very Tarzan.
Theme is powerful.
Yep.
Hey, you guys said it. I'm so excited
And
for
yeah.
the sequel. I can't wait.
I hear that there's going to be a new sequel. That's relatively new news, right?
Pachi, it's a cat.
Why am I in trouble for quoting Dorcas?
You are in trouble, Bimo. I decided. Well, we're not doing the postscript. Where are we done?
No, because I
Yeah.
fear sequel. I fear spoilers in the postscript. There are preview chapters. Neat.
Gosh, this man writes a lot.
Yeah. So let's see. We do still have Shadows for Silence scheduled for October 31st. Why did I not write down a time?
Because we haven't got the actual time of that. We just know it's on the day.
Yes. Correct. Okay, so we'll have a time for that. And those chapters are super spoilery. Good to know.
Good. Well, we're not going near them.
And yes, I'm going to try and do my Dragonbone chair stream next week, within the, let's say, next 7 to 10 days.
I need to go and finish it then.
Do it. How far are you?
That's 50% now. So
nice.
Yeah.
Binabic. Best character. And it sounds like we do have a slew of new casting streams coming. Kita, what's going on your channel?
I'm not doing anything literary at the moment, but there's been somewhat of a viral streak of a certain debate. A thing where Jubilee does these things with political debates, where there's one person who debates a whole room of people. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get into that for debate diagram this week. So
nice. Oh, also, at some point in the next, 30 to 90 days, I'm planning on making some upgrades to my computer, which I'm very excited for. At which point I will be trying to do some games over on the No One Asked You gaming channel. So that'll be exciting as well.
Make sure you're subscribed to it and put your notifications on.
Yes, and at some point I will be doing a video, I believe, over on Libralita's channel. Libralita has a wonderful Cosmere channel with lots of videos that I can't watch yet, unfortunately. But yeah, if you want current Cosmere takes, I'm sure she's got them aplenty. And BMO's doing some stuff, or intends to do some stuff as well. And thank you all so much for the support that you've all shown me thus far. It seems so surreal. It feels like there's a community here now, and it feels like such a really wonderful group. I like all of you. You're fun, and I enjoy sharing this journey with you. Statement of appreciation. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you in the future. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.